OTB AM with Gillette Labs. Get the ultimate shave or your money back. Neon Night Edition available now.
Hello, good morning and welcome. Colm has already spit his coffee out. I'm trying to arrange the papers so you don't have to see what's on the front of them this morning, as I'm sure there's enough of that going on wherever it is that you are. Good morning to you. Welcome to OTBAM. Wow, have we got a stacked show for you today. We're kicking off with Colm and Shane Hannon. Good morning to you, lads.
Good morning. How are things?
Nice intro.
Kathleen McNamee is going to join us very shortly because we have business to talk about.
We do.
But just before coming on air, we will get to Ireland last night. There were I really enjoyed the game last night, I must say, and we'll get into it in great detail. Like even the first half, there was a lot of people bagging on it. The TV commentary was not fully sold on this Irish performance in the first half. There's a lot of commentary online in a similar vein.
Yeah, I'd agree.
I wouldn't be so down on it, I must say. Decent prep, bit of rustiness. Got to know a few players.
I don't know, the first half was poor. Poor.
But with a caveat.
After the first 3 minutes, the first 3 minutes were very strong. Izzy Atkinson on the left wing was probably one of the two bright sparks in the first half.
Yeah.
Alongside Leanne Kiernan. She had a beautiful whipped cross.
Yeah.
Seconds into the game, really, and Kieran couldn't control it because there was so much fizz in it. And then after it was about 3 minutes, Claire O'Riordan, who went on to score, had a chance inside the box, kind of deft chip over the bar. After that, and then it was like, that's a very strong start, very positive. Because Ireland haven't been great in 2023, really.
So you'd be a good man for a fizz yourself, would you?
Where are you going with that?
So you'd like to get a bit of a whip on the ball.
Oh, I love a whip on the ball. Yeah. Love one now.
You right-footed, Colm, yeah?
I am, yeah.
Well, he sees himself as a bit of a David Beckham.
Extremely right-footed.
That's what we're dealing with here.
Who said that?
You.
I never said that. No. Right-footed on the left side, on the cut in. And I love a bit of a fizz on the right.
Anyway,
right
we are going to get into the game in great detail.
I'm happy to get into it.
Discussing before, you're not really the GA Cork complaint was coming tomorrow and you wouldn't be seen dead at it.
No, that's totally unfair and untrue and unjust, and a betray of confidence that he brought this up at all.
No, but I said it. I'm not betraying confidence.
I know it's terrible. No, it's terrible. It's very terrible that you would say that to me. I would go tomorrow if I could, but I'm going down to Cork for a reason.
When is the last time? If you could go tomorrow, if you could. When is the last time you were at a Cork GA game?
I was actually against Dublin in Croke Park.
Oh, it's one of the bigger games you made an exception for, like an All-Ireland semi-final or something.
And then there's a game, Cork Waterford, the hurling, actually. I couldn't go for a reason.
Will you go to that because there's a bit of home rivalry going on?
No, it was nothing to do with family ties.
Can be fair.
I couldn't go, although the reason I couldn't go was probably some familial reasons. But
oh yeah.
No, there's always a reason.
Oh, sure.
And I go because I actually haven't been to the redeveloped Park Equipe, like, so I would love to go.
You're not just proved the point now.
Well, cheapo, relax.
It's not going to get out of debt. It's not going to get out of debt with the likes of you.
Hey, what's this?
Sort of Johnny
what's this,
come
a roast, is it?
I might come and might go.
Anyway,
it led from there to Hannon sort of declaring himself as the most patriotic of all the patriotic people
in terms of the county. There's no doubt of the three people sitting here, and you can let us know in the comments if you agree.
But sure,
but I am the one who cares the most about my county. I was that neither here nor there.
You just mentioned it the most.
You talk about it.
Yeah,
that's different.
Is that not part of loving your county? Talking about it and telling people how great it is?
It is. It's what a politician would do.
No, well, what's
a good joke?
So you lads show your
in fairness, I thought it was very good of myself. I thought it was very good.
So you lads show your patriotism by talking as little as possible about where you're from.
It's not like I'm very proud of where I'm from. I would, I want to talk about. I talk about Westmeath a lot on the show. I want to talk about them an awful lot more. I'm sort of keeping myself in the bridle a little bit.
Don't then. Let it all
the listeners. They don't want to hear about Monaghan. They don't want to hear about Westmeath.
But they do want to hear about. I would not.
Colm doesn't want to talk about Cork.
I would not have any other county to be from than Cork.
But
having seen what everyone has to offer,
everybody in Ireland, everybody in the other 31 counties,
everyone has to offer, I'm delighted I'm from Cork.
Everybody in the other 31 counties feels that way.
Yeah.
People from Cork just have to tell you that all the time.
No, I don't think I do.
Munster.
I let the accent
Irish by birth, Munster by the grace of God.
It's different. I just let the accent speak for itself.
But you don't know what it's like to live in Monaghan or to be from Monaghan.
You don't know what it's like. It's terrible.
No, it's brilliant. But like, you wouldn't know that. So of course you're going to say Cork. I don't know what it's like to live in Westmeath. I'm sure it's brilliant.
You were only in Cork for the first time recently.
Last summer, yeah.
Anyway,
if I could equate it to, I was talking to Dave McIntyre and the Dadcast, now available, by the way, on your podcast feed near you, during the week, and we both said we got a rosette last Sunday that said best dad ever. And I was like, how did you get one of them if I also got one of them? It's the same sort of thing. Your county's great, my county's great, every county's amazing. Well, you're going to you're never going to find somebody that comes from, I mean, even let's say a Longford or something like that. That's a joke. That is a joke. But you're never going to find somebody who comes from a county that says, well, I'm really not proud to be from there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I never hear much about Carlow.
Jesus,
what's that book? Tony 10.
Yeah.
You know, the postman who Declan Lynch wrote that, didn't he?
Yeah.
He's from Carlow. And then you and I watched Two Johnnies sketch that had to do with Carlow Town yesterday.
Very good, yeah.
And they're the two mentions of Carlow.
Yeah.
So I think anyone from Carlow, I don't hear much about it.
Well, there's a few comments in there. Fergus Keogh saying, Colm not liking GAA doesn't mean he's not a proud Cork man. I wouldn't have suggested
I never
that for
say,
a second.
And also, do you know what I mean?
It's just
I
taken.
like GAA.
It's a given.
This is terrible now. Because I will go if
PWGC says, has anyone ever gone to Monaghan or Westmeath on their holidays?
But I think they have. They definitely have.
I'll have you know Athlone is a tourist hotbed, the Hidden Heartlands.
Yeah. Great company.
They don't call it the Hidden Heartlands for no reason.
One of the Beatles got married in Monaghan. I mean, Castle Leslie.
Castle Leslie.
How did that go?
Didn't go too well, but that's not the point.
Look what happened to him afterwards.
Lads, come on, seriously now.
What else have we got here now? But just before that, I'm in Carlow now, Colm, says Michael. A hidden gem.
Is it?
They don't speak about it as don't want people to move here. The hidden gem is often used in the same terms as a gateway, which is like there's something better over there.
Sorry, I got sunstroke in Carlow.
Oh, great. Well, this conversation has... John Claffey says, Sean's bar side of Athlone is lovely. The far side, John, is what I would call it there. And I wouldn't want to be from any other county, says Bobby Dwyer, said by three men living in Dublin.
If I could not live in Dublin,
Bobby, unfortunately, that's where we have to be. Like,
you don't have to say unfortunately, now. Come on.
No, it is.
It's your adopted home, no matter what way you look at it.
I know, I would never ever say that.
I would not.
Well, you might not say it.
Yeah, I mean, it might be true.
Exactly.
Exactly. I would never say, come on,
I'm not going to say that.
We've loads to talk about.
As a Fountain Sam Forlan, and good morning to you, Double F, has been in touch again this morning. As a Corkman, I can understand why Colm wouldn't be bothered going tomorrow. It's only football. Sure, if you're actually from Cork, you couldn't give... The true definition of a Cork person is that they couldn't give a hoot about the football. Most
people, sure. But there are parts of Cork that they'd like it. Alright, I'd be fond of the football. Do you know, which remember recently we were talking about, would you rather watch football or hurling?
Yeah.
And if it was a great game between both sports, I'd probably lean towards football, but I watch more hurling. That would be my synopsis of it. I'd say a lot of Cork people would say the same.
But you haven't been to the revamped Páirc Uí Chaoimh yet.
What does that matter?
Well, it means that you're a bit of Johnny come lately and all this. Incredible.
Fair weather.
Last word to... Fair weather, he's right, is not true. He's not even that.
No. Well, isn't that better?
No weather.
Than being a fair weather. And also, I watch them from afar all the time.
All right, watch.
So look and listen. We'll go down. We'll go to
Daniel Casey says Shane would give John Milan.
We'll have a great time
for his money.
I'm glad to hear that, Daniel. Thank you very much. Take that as a compliment. 047 tattooed.
Kathleen, welcome to the party.
Welcome, guys. Once again, not really sure what I walked into, but it was very entertaining all the same.
We've been here sitting through it, and neither are we.
Man, here's digressing for 5 minutes, but come on.
Koi Gig is in the books.
Yeah, just finished recording there with Karen. Actually, a really good episode. The two of us were a little bit giddy after last night, so lots of good analysis on the team and all the players, so that should be hitting your feeds in the next hour or so, I would say.
Before we get a little bit of reaction from the players and management last night, what's the main takeaway from Koi Gig this morning? We're going to win the World Cup?
I think the main takeaway is that last night was absolutely no reflection on how we're going to play or do in the World Cup. Neither, I think you could probably look at it as two different teams, the one that played in the first half and the one that played in the second half, and neither are teams that are going to play in their completion at the World Cup. So last night wasn't about looking for tactics or teams or formations or anything. Last night was very much about individuals and what we could do. I think the main takeaway was that there was a couple of players that really showed how well they were. First half, I think the players were suffering a little bit from nerves. First time I've properly seen and heard nerves, even when talking to the players afterwards from them since they went into camp. And a bit of rustiness, and a few players back from injury. There was the first half, right? I felt watching, we were kind of touching it at the top, but I felt watching I was obviously dual listening and watching it on the TV and following it online, but it felt like people were very down on them, and I just think there's enough caveats to say that you weren't really expecting them to
blow Zambia out of the water in the first half.
I think like what confused me about a lot of people's reaction last night that I saw online and stuff was that thing of they were looking at it as a whole team performance and less so how much this meant to individual players. So say you look at the likes of Leanne Kiernan, like she's only played 45 minutes of footballs in the last like 9 months. Of course there's going to be rustiness there, and also any of those 11 have never actually played in that setup together, so like it was understandable to a point that there was the connections not really happening. Rochelle Littlejohn hasn't played in a couple of months either because she stopped playing for her club early so that she could stay away from injury because she's had such a tough time with that. Saoirse Noonan finished up a good nearly 6 to 8 weeks now, I think, because she plays in the championship. So there's a lot of players in that squad that aren't playing football currently, and I think Vera made a really good point when we were talking to her afterwards, and she said, I was like, at half time, what did you say to the players? Like, why did the other team come out in the second half and look like a cohesive unit? And I know she made 5 changes, but even the players who stayed on, Clara Reardon and Abby Larkin, looked a lot more impressive than they did in the first half. And she was like, the team in the first half were afraid to fail. She's like, you can't really look at it any other way. That was what was wrong. And you can totally understand why those players in that moment are like, God, this is I'm starting, this is my opportunity to get myself on the plane. I haven't played a lot of minutes. It all depends on this match. When it doesn't, like realistically, Vera is going to have looked at enough of them in training and other times as well. Whereas for the players that came on in the second half, they were able to watch that and they were able to listen to Vera at halftime and be like, okay, look, there's some places up for grabs here. I just need to go out there and play football and I might be able to nab a spot. And I think you really saw that difference between the two sides in the first and the second half. Not to put a negative slant on anything really, Kathleen, and obviously it was good to get the win last night, good to get players with minutes in legs, but I was chatting to someone last night who was also watching the match and we both came to the same conclusion. Are we too slow at the back? Like, as in, I know Barbara Banda is a player that of a certain calibre that you mightn't face every single game, but there are certain examples during the match where you're like, Jesus, this, like, it's so easy to get through that Irish defence at times. I don't know, I'm not going to say it's an age thing, I'm not going to say it's a tiredness thing, I don't know what it is, but is that something we should be concerned about? I think if you look at the back line that we had last night, it's very different to what we would normally play. Like, obviously you have that partnership of Nifahi and Louise Quinn, that's probably pretty nailed on, but on either side of that there was a lot of changes, and Nifahi's only just coming back from injury, and you could see, I mean, she was happy enough to clatter into a couple of Zambian players at different points, but you could kind of see it in her. And also I thought Louise as well looked like, as a player who's just coming back after championship ending a couple of weeks ago, I think they both looked like they still needed a bit of game time, bit of game fitness. We've never been known as a team that's like particularly fast at the back. Like, what we're good at is playing that solid back 4 or 5 that doesn't really move all that far from their positions. I think Aoife Mannion is the sort of player that offers us that bit of pace and that bit of security at the back that the other players don't. And actually Karen and I just had a really good debate on Koi Gig about Aoife Mannion and whether she should be included or not over, say, a player like Clara Reardon, who came in last night and had quite a good showing for herself. Will it come down to that? Is that a either or? It depends on what point of view you come from. I think a lot of it depends on how fit Aoife Mannion is, and the general consensus seems to be that we are not getting the full picture of that. So how much do you value her coming into that squad with only a couple of caps versus maybe someone like Diane Caldwell, who has been there from day dot and has a good... I'm not saying, I'm sure Aoife Mannion has a good relationship with most of the players. They all speak very highly with her, but in terms of, you know, you've gone through the trenches with someone, does that matter as well in a group in terms of not upsetting a balance and stuff? So I won't totally spoil what we came to a conclusion on. Go on. No, you have to go get it in your podcast feeds wherever it is, but it's an interesting one to think about and something that Vera has to measure up. I think as well, the other thing is, whenever we play our traditional team, you have players like Katie and Denise who do provide a lot of cover for our back line, and they don't have to have that level of speed that you would probably hope to have as a team. But I mean, there's no getting around it. We have an aging back line. A lot of those players possibly may not play past this World Cup. We don't know. Maybe some of them will go into the Nations League and play for another year or so, or try to get to a Euros, but you're probably looking at players who are playing in one big tournament, and then that might be it. Not that I want that to happen, because
you probably had your Kathleen, you probably have your preferred final squad in your head chosen, right? You might have. Did last night's game change any choices for you?
Amber Barrett.
Amber Barrett. Look, I got enough slack off Nathan last night, and also got off everyone on Twitter. And I said it to Amber before I interviewed her. I was like, Amber, because she's a lovely, lovely person to talk to, really, really genuine. And I was like, Amber, I'm sorry. I know I said multiple times that you weren't making the plane, but also you proved me wrong tonight. And she just laughed, and she was like, Kathleen, you weren't the only one to say it. And she was like, I don't blame you either. So yeah, definitely loads of changes. But that's the thing. Like, since we've started talking about this squad, I feel like the first 11 to 15 are probably pretty much dead certs, depending on fitness. And then I'd say if you take the 3 goalkeepers out of it, that leaves another 5. That is so in and out, because there's probably like 10, 15 players vying for those places, and it's really, really tough. I thought I was quite down on, say, Abby Larkin whenever I saw her play in Marbella. I thought she was really uncertain on the ball and needed a little bit of maturity that she didn't really show. I thought she was good last night. I thought she, especially in the second half, you could visibly see a change in how she was playing, and obviously she got the penalty as well, which really was a turning point, I think, for the team. And I think I didn't see the post-match interviews, but I think she was talking to RT or something.
Yeah, I heard.
Yeah, and she said that, you know, that was a really important confidence boost for her. I thought Clara Reardon did a really impressive job, and she would very much be one of those fringe players who, again, if Aoife Mannion isn't fit, or if you're looking to bring someone in, she's also an option to come in. And who else was I? Ciara Grant as well would be one of those players that's very much on the outskirts, but also I love whenever you talk to her. She has the same sort of Amber Barrett, Donegal mentality, where she was, every time I interviewed her over the last while, she's like, look, I've been a stalwart in the squad for the last 2 years. I know I'm not a starting player, but I am the sort of player who comes on and provides a bit of stability, a bit of ease for the players around me, because they know what to expect. And I was asking her how did she see Amber running off her shoulder for the header down, because I was like, Amber was a little bit behind you when you actually did knock it down to her. And she was like, the team were actually given off to me just before that for playing that bit higher up the pitch. But she was like, I know from when I play with my club that I can get into those attacking positions for set pieces, and I'm quite good in them. So she was like, I just kind of ignored what the bench was yelling at me and went for it. And I just saw Amber out of the corner of my eye. She called it the Donegal connection, and placed the ball down perfectly for Amber to score. So definitely a lot of players in there who are on the outskirts, and God, there's part of me that's like, I just wish Vera was announced in the 23 today, because if I feel nervous about it, I can't imagine what these players are going through.
She's the main discussion point. Let's hear from her after here she is on the penalty, I think, that she scored in Tala last night.
Are you practicing penalties? Are you going to be the one stepping up during the World Cup, presuming that tonight booked your ticket on the playing? So I'm pretty sure that's what everyone is saying at the moment.
Well, no, because the last penalty I took, I missed in the league for Turbina. So I think that when the penalty went in, and straight away in my head I was like, I really want to take it. And I think because Katie wasn't playing, it would probably have been Megan Connolly next, and me and Megan just had a wee look to each other, and Megan gave me the nod, and I've already said it, but I have to really say thanks to Megan for that, because just for me to get that goal again, get a little bit of confidence into my play again, was something I really, really needed. And yeah, of course, anytime you score, of course the pressure comes that you have to when you take the penalty, but as soon as I put the ball down, I really backed myself. But as you said, going then and scoring from a set piece is always a good thing, and it wasn't Louise Quinn, it was my best friend Clara Reardon, so that was another special moment for me as well.
Yeah, people who said she wasn't going to be on the plane, riling her up to the point where, I think the squad's going to be named next week. After that, you're going to have the France game on July the 6th as a warm-up. Like, there's still an opportunity for people within the squad to play them themselves into the team. it felt last night looking at her, the quality, the composure, the technical ability for that second goal was off the charts. Like, it feels like we've moved from a conversation of, is she going to be on the plane? Is she going to be in the team?
Yeah, we see, this is the thing, because when you look at Karen was saying on Koi Gig there that she actually put a package together on Amber Barrett. She assumed she'd be starting and then she wasn't. And if you look at the impact she's had, there was last night coming on, getting the 2 goals. There was obviously Hampton Park and what she did against Scotland. There was another game from 2018, which is a qualifier or something. I can't quite remember what Karen said, but she came on and she scored a really, really important goal. And there is a conversation to be had there, like, is Amber Barrett the ultimate impact player? And especially because she hasn't played a lot of football for the last 6 to 8 months, is she the sort of player that we have in our back pocket and you chuck her on and she gets those really important goals? And I know a player,
it's unfair, isn't it? Like, because ultimately at some point or another the super sub thing, like, it just becomes a thing unless it becomes something else.
Well, no, but
I know that's like a very vague, broad thing to say, but it's true, right? Like, if she's gone in, showed real composure to bury that penalty, there was absolutely no doubt about it. And like that crowded area, like the composure is a hard thing.
Off her left foot, which she never scores with either.
And in that, to use a Pepism, in that moment where there's a crowded area, everything is on the line. You've spoken about like the nerves, the pressure on performance to make the plane, to pull that out of the bag there. And then we spoke the last time we were chatting about this, Kathleen, about having somebody in terms of the Scotland game, and I know she's fed up talking about it, but in terms of that ability to say, put me in, I'm going to get you a goal. And like, regardless of what's been going on with her club, she's now proven again, I am that person. At some point or another, Vera Pauw must surely, she said, did Vera Pauw say after the game last night they weren't leaving the stadium until they discussed everything, the coaching staff?
Yeah, they
surely they must be batting it around the table. Do we just stick her in?
Oh, look, like, I've said this since last night. Like, I'm simply saying that she, probably the biggest moments that she has had have been those coming off the bench, and that is something that she has excelled at. And I before you started, I was about to say that, like, I know that for a player, that it's not title that you want. You don't want to be known as the super sub or the one who comes on. I mean, some players might not care, but I think the majority are like, we want to be on the starting team. I would absolutely give her a chance starting. I think that if we set up the way we did against the US, which may be like a little bit optimistic for Vera, because I fear she may go back to her tried and trusted complete defence, I think Amber would fit really well into that system. And also, we've talked about it for so long. We haven't had that person that can poach goals, and in the last couple of months she's probably the main person who has proven that she can do that for us. So whether it's her up there by herself or her partnering with Carusa, with say like Payne, O'Sullivan, Katie McCabe, all providing that support, maybe even like Marissa Shiva off the wings if she makes it, which you would kind of think she's on the plane if all those players are coming into the squad on the day the squad is being announced. I do think she could do a job. And like, there still is a month as well to get more fitness, and they'll have that game against Colombia to make sure that they do have complete match fitness. But and so I think for me, what's been most impressive about Amber since that night in Scotland in particular is her mentality around everything. You know, you said it there about whenever she was on the bench, she said, Vera, put me in, I'll get you a goal. And that's exactly what she did in Scotland. Even yesterday, she's had a really, really difficult 6 to 8 months, and she talked about it to us last week and saying that the club didn't really support her. And I mean, Turbine Potsdam is a club with an incredible history in women's football that has just sadly not been able to keep up with all the money that has come into the league. But she hasn't played. She's been sitting on the bench. She's been injured, and she's not been injured, and she's been sitting on the bench. And then to come off and do that last night, I mean, full credit to her. I don't think you can say enough about how in that high pressure situation she pulled it out of the bag. And if she wants, I said it to her last night, I was like, she always has a different celebration for nearly every goal, and I was like, I hope we see many of those different celebrations. I was like, I want you to spend that time over on the plane thinking about at least 10 celebrations that you're going to do over the World Cup.
You're talking about her mentality, the Donegal mentality. I spoke to someone recently who used to race against Amber Barrett at a senior, like, athletics level when she was like growing up in schools and that sort of thing. Amber Barrett used to race for Finn Valley Athletics Club in Donegal, and at the proper like Ulster meets, All Ireland meets, she'd race in her bare feet. Like the rest of them would be wearing spikes. And like proper spikes. This is proper level.
Was it cross country or was
no? I think it was on track, so it would have been probably middle distance, short distance.
That's her character, though, isn't it?
Well, that doesn't surprise me at all.
I know, it's mad, isn't it? As soon as I heard it, I was like, that kind of makes sense. It's Amber Barrett.
And like you totally see the attraction of her coming in off the bench, but at the same time, she must feel as if she's doing enough now to.
Well, that's the audition. That's it now. So like, you have to bring her shortly, don't you? You have to.
Bring her.
Oh yeah,
there's no question about that.
I don't think there's any question about whether she's on the plane last night. And it was funny, she was saying that last night was actually the first time that she didn't feel pressure over the last couple of weeks. She was like, I know this is probably going to last about 10 minutes, but I'm going to enjoy the 10 minutes while I have them and just take a breath and be like, okay. You
tweeted your delight about Claire O'Riordan.
Yeah, just a player that has been very much on the outskirts of the Irish squad. Well, like, she'll come in, but she'll never really get a whole host of minutes. And I thought she was one of the players that maybe struggled a little bit in the first half with nerves, but she also did have a couple of really important blocks and also one or two headers that kind of went straight into the hands of the goalkeeper, but at least, it was a shot on target. We will take that in terms of our players getting into the squad that haven't really played as much. And then getting that goal the second half, I chatted to Vera about it, and she pulled Claire out actually as one of the players that she pulled aside at a half time, and she just said to her, like, you're in your head too much. She was like, we know what you can do. You provide in defence, but also you can attack, like, you can get a goal. And when I chatted to Claire about it, she was saying obviously it was the set piece, and she gave a lot of credit to Megan Connolly, and to be fair, it was a very nice place ball, but she was like, I just had Vera's words running around in my head to, this is it, this is your moment. And I played the full game, really impressive. I think she is one of the names that a lot of people wouldn't have probably considered as a name for the playing, but has put a good case forward by how she played last night, especially depending on injuries in that back line, and obviously then whatever Vera is saying. But I think for players like her, just to have the opportunity, like, it's obviously what's important now in the short term is going to the World Cup, getting a performance, but also legacy is important too, and the experience these players are getting in camp, the experience that they're getting of being in this like intense like pre-tournament atmosphere is really important, because we come out of the World Cup and we're straight into quite a tough Euros qualification, so we want more and more players getting used to that pressure, getting used to that atmosphere, getting a taste for, I performed quite well, I might be on a plane to Australia. Okay, I didn't make it to Australia, I'm getting to the next tournament, and that's what we want. And I think that's why it's important that we have such a big squad in at the moment.
Just one question, like, Kathy, I know you were saying, look, last night, you have to put into perspective, it's like a lot of players are being tried out, different positions. It's not like you're without the two star players outfield. Would you be in any way concerned of the football Zambia played versus our possession? No, it was kind of what I expected, to be honest. I think a lot of people underestimated Zambia going into this game because it's quite difficult to watch a lot of their matches if you're based here. I watched quite a lot of them in the Olympics, the last Olympics, and like Barbara Banda, who's their captain and obviously got the goal last night, incredibly talented player. She was the first ever person to score consecutive hat-tricks in that Olympics, and was a real shining light that came out, and a name that a lot of people didn't expect. I don't think I would be massively concerned. I think it was a really, really good test for us for when we do come up against Nigeria, because if you think about it, we were missing so many key players. A lot of that, the way we were set up is not how we were going to be set up at the World Cup. So if we can get a result like last night where the result didn't really matter, like obviously you want to win, but I think if we can do that and maybe cut out some of the mistakes, like I thought the second goal was a poor from us. Harriet Scott just let her player get away from her, and once they were in, it was a pretty cool finish. But also shout out to Courtney Brosnan. That like
30 seconds where
Yeah.
she saved one in the middle, then she went over to like the right side of the goal, saved again, and then was back over the other side of the goal to claim the ball. I was like, how did that not go in?
That was at 3-2 as well, wasn't
Yeah.
it?
Undisputably, I remember having a conversation with Emma Burnout and Tella about a year and a half ago about who should be the goalkeeper. It seems ludicrous conversation.
Yeah, Karen said the same on RT last night. Yeah.
I had a lovely sort of moment last night. We were watching the game. The young fellow wanted to stay up as late as he possibly could to see it. I think he went to bed at 2-1, and then my 4-year-old girl was like so excited when she saw it was the girls on the TV, and it was lovely, I must say. But anyway,
Yeah, I have to say I was chatting to a lot of fans just before we went in, and it was kind of funny. I had to break it to several of them. I asked them who their favourite player was, and by far Katie McCabe was the name that came up the most. A couple of Denise O'Sullivan's, interestingly a Tara O'Hanlon or two as well, which I thought was nice as a player who's on the outside, but had to break it to a couple of like 7 or 8 year olds that I was like, who are you excited to see? They were like, Katie McCabe. I was like, you do know she's not
keep
in
an eye
the
on the stand there.
like she'll be about somewhere though. You'll definitely see her. You'll definitely
She
see
was
her.
in the huddle last night giving it the big one afterwards as well.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't you?
But yeah, no, it was really nice. And actually, credit to Zambia. They had a really impressive supporters group there.
You saw
And
that,
the players went over to them and spent a good while there. And there was actually a lot of respect from the Irish crowd as well towards the Zambian players. They did a lap of the pitch and had a standing ovation from everyone.
Yeah, it was grand when we'd beaten them. It was fine. Check out Koi Gig if you want more conversation about that. Do it about 10 o'clock this morning once the show's over, but that is there waiting for your delectation anytime you want. And we do have a little bit more reaction to come from the game last night, and we will hear from Vera Powell, I would think, before we leave the show this morning. Kathleen, though, thanks a million for the minute for that. Colm, to you as well. Loads coming up between now and 10 for you this morning. We have Ronan O'Gara. He is outside the studio door and he is about to come in, and we'll be chatting to him, an extended conversation with Ronan with the season now finished. Any questions you have or comments, please do fire those in. We'll talk to Luke Loughlin, the Westmeath footballer, after a very interesting season for them. Came agonisingly close to making the preliminary quarter-finals, but just came up short against Tyrone last weekend. Keith Higgins and Gary Sice will preview the game of the year. It's Mayo against Galway in Salt Hill on Sunday, and we'll get their thoughts on that. And then Alan Quinlan is going to talk to us about the start of the Under-20 World Championship tomorrow, and a few other bits and pieces as well besides. So loads to come on the show for you this morning. Do stay with us and do keep those comments flooding in. We're going to have Ronan in studio after the ads, and during the ads you hear a clip from the latest episode of the Hurling Pod. It'll be James Scahill talking tip, controversial stuff. The Hurling Pod with Borgosh Energy, proud sponsors of the Senior Hurling Championship and the Legends Tour series, which takes place at Croke Park. And also, by the way, a reminder that you can check out our social channels for the latest announcement about the Hurling Pod going on the road. It'll be at the Borgosh Energy Theatre. It'll be July 20th. Proceeds are going to a couple of very worthy foundations, so check out our social feeds for more details on that. Family tickets available, and tickets reasonably priced as well. So back after these, Ronan O'Gara live in studio.
OTB AM,
the Sports Breakfast Show from Off the Ball.
Toe pocket goal! Ahead of this summer's football in Australia, we're going to Australia.
It's what dreams are made of.
We'll be hosting a night of celebration for the Republic of Ireland women's national team in partnership with Sky, and it's coming your way on June 28th in the Mansion House in Dublin. What a moment for the Republic of Ireland. We'll be joined by the full squad.
I don't know what we've just done. You know, I did believe we could do it.
As well as some other great guests as we give the team a night to remember. Emma Barrett is in tears.
I can't believe it. We've finally done it.
Tune into all of Off the Ball's channels for a chance to win tickets to this exclusive event.
Sky, proud primary partners of the Republic of Ireland women's national team.
Out believe together, and we can go anywhere.
They are going to the World Cup Finals.
Like, personally speaking, I know I'm accused sometimes of speaking my mind too honestly, right? But Jesus, I have good friends at Tipperary, right?
This is dangerous.
I have a club man, like, and he's your best friend, like James Egan. He plays with us here, right? But Jays, I hate Tip. Jays, I hate them. I don't know what it is. It's an insatiable hatred. And my uncles would always say to me, when you have the hay saved and Tip bet, that's a good summer. So it's like, and that's it. Or we have to win this game by any means possible. And that's I guarantee there's Galway players at this minute saying we have got to win this game. Whatever it is, when we talk about emotion, like, we don't have rivalries with anyone in Connacht for obvious reasons, so we pick our nearest neighbours. So for me, my biggest rivalries are with Clare or Tipperary, just personally from my playing days. And I guarantee you 9/10 of that team there now are looking at Tip with just, there's an arrow, there's a bullseye in their back. And likewise, go down to Turles training tomorrow evening, there's a bullseye aiming up the way too. So it does, and it's a great fixture and always produces the goods. I can't remember a Galway-Tipperary game, certainly in the last 10 or 12 years, that it actually failed to produce a really exciting, maybe 1 point, 2 point finish. So that's what I'm expecting again. And ultimately, what you have now is two teams who probably didn't see the way the year going the way they wanted to go so far. Truthfully speaking, I think Galway probably wanted to win Leinster, Tip probably wanted to get to a Munster final. Probably coming from two different positions, and they're going to go hammer and tongs at it. And when you ask me who's going to call it, again, it's similar to last year's Leinster final. I really, really want Galway to win, and I'm going to say this is on draw territory. This is 1 point either way. This is draw territory, but I'm sneaking Galway for a point. I just think they're very, very hurt from speaking to a couple of them locally here. Very hurt to what happened over the last week, and hungry and driven, and kind of fed up too with a lot of the shite that's been said in the media. Like, if I hear this phrase one more time, what Galway is going to turn up? I mean, I hate that shit. Like, for ultimately, like, say, take the last game for example, right? Galway beat Kinney, and everyone will point to, and I did it myself because I was kind of probably emotional at the time, where Galway go down by a certain number of points, and you're saying that they're producing pure shit. Then they turn it on and they come back and go ahead, let's say. And that's probably what Galway people are, the public or the other members of the media are saying, that this is what, do they get the Galway that go down 7 or 8 points, or they get the Galway that can open you up? That's just Galway. We just come and go. We haven't flown the games, but ultimately we're within a score or two. And I think Paul Bellew, the Galway chairman, he gave me a great stat a couple of weeks ago. Now I don't have the specific years, but over the last number of years, I'm going to go back 7 or 8 years, when every game we've been knocked out, right? We've always been one score heading into injury time. One score has been the gap. So you know that they were always there. We're never beaten 15 points or 10 points, never. So we're always one score within heading into injury time. So I know for a fact that come Saturday evening, that heading into the 71st minute, there's going to be one poke of the ball in it. And I'm just hoping it goes the right way.
OTB AM with Gillette Labs. Get the ultimate shave or your money back. Neon Night Edition available now.
All right, it's gone 8:05. You are watching OTBAM. Ronan O'Gara is live in studio. Morning, Ronan.
Yeah, Adrian.
How are you doing?
Shane. Yeah, I'm good.
This is quite the pleasure. Normally we're chatting to you down the line from some far-flung area of France.
Yeah, or I was, as I said to Colm outside, that there was a little bit of me admitting I could do it from my hotel room in Dublin this morning.
I'd say nothing. Yeah. You'd have got away with that. Nobody would have batted an eyelid.
Exactly. But then I said, no, I enjoy it. It's been a great year, a good team of people to work with here, and so come in, show face. And my brother actually bizarrely, well, maybe not bizarrely, opened a dental shop, or dental practice, isn't that's the word, in Blackrock in Dublin. So he's a dentist. So
you're a popular man around those
So he brought the trophy out last night just to parade it around. I'll hit Dalkey, I'll hit Blackrock.
No, there's no. It's, as sport as we say, it moved very quickly. So for me, we lost the top 14 final last weekend in Stade de France. Fantastic, because before the final you obviously get the French national anthem, which is a very, for me, inspiring national anthem. I was a player always when you play France. It was as you get experience, you could kind of chat with the boys in the team, and kind of sometimes we find yourselves humming along to it. You know, you kind of no, hold on, that's not
like that in.
But it was brilliant in a full house, I suppose, because it's their masterpiece, the top 14 final. But we unfortunately were stuck in lifts getting up to the coaching box.
Because it was amazing. Somebody clipped up. I was watching last Saturday night. It was an amazing event, and we'll talk to you about that in more detail. But the thing itself was incredible. Your family are unbelievably high achievers.
He sounds surprised, Ronan. He sounds surprised.
I'm not a bit surprised, but
raised right.
Well, raised in Bishopstown and Cork, you know, and whatever, semi-detached house in terms of that. There's no, I think my mum always said you get out of life what you put into it, and they're obviously a teacher and a professor of microbiology, so education was important, and my brothers respected that, and I got a kind of a route through rugby because I scraped into university, you know.
If you hadn't have done rugby, Was there? Was that even a conversation?
I did no, because I did a master's in business economics in UCC, right. So I would have been doing hopefully strategy in business or something like that. But
kind of what you're doing now, but in a different,
exactly. It's actually very, very similar. And that's why it interests me a lot. So there's obviously I think my older brother is an addiction counsellor in John O'God's in Dublin, so his work is really, really interesting, and he's passionate about it. And I think he had come straight from a day yesterday of doing it, and I saw him just outside the dental practice, and I could see he was in kind of match mode. And he was kind of psychoanalyzing me and looking me up and down before, because I was chatting to another guy before he even presented his thoughts that I was his brother, you know. So it's been a long week this week, in the fact that I kind of you come off a defeat, but then you realise it was a great season, but then you also realise how into match mode you get when you're doing your passion. So we'll go on holidays next week and recharge and come back.
Has it been a long week? Is it hard to? Are you a wallower after that?
No, because it's a great reminder to how. You mean a Leinster feeling that's multiplied by 3, so I've tasted that this week, you know, where you're 2 minutes from completing something that's very, very rare in modern sport, a double, but I think just a little percentage point or 2 off, and that's what sport at the top level is, fine margins, you know. For me, the last bit of trial or a bit of genius from Entomac, even though it was a poor decision defensively on our behalf, but a guy who's able to accelerate and glide with such guile after 78 minutes of a long season, of a long test match, to score the winning try. I didn't probably think he had that, but
he might have had it if the stuff hadn't happened before that. He might not, because he was probably trying to individually win the game on his own at that stage, wasn't he? It
was, because he missed a crucial, which was a massive breaking point for us.
Get every inch out of it.
And for us, we know how to put away close games. And honestly, there was probably a lot of disbelief in, when you scan and look back at the video, in their Toulouse players and their coaching staff and their group, that they were nearly as surprised as anyone that they'd scored this try to go. And we didn't have enough time to come back. But it was 2013, that's where we lost the game. It went 2016, 2019, 22-20. We gave them 3 piggybacks, which killed us.
There's probably shades of the Leinster game at some points, because you come from 10 points. Was it 10 points down at one stage? So like, the team had clearly mentally strong enough to come back from deficits. It was just that this occasion, the last couple of minutes were slightly different.
Yeah, it was, exactly. But as I said, we were inaccurate as well. At 2013, if you score any kind of score, but probably the way we were playing, if we got a driving maul try and convert that as 27-13, that just kills everyone, you know. But that's ifs and buts, and my aunt and my uncle, and
I'm glad a week later that you could reflect like that. And there was a nice clip. I couldn't tell what was being said, but between yourself and Entomac afterwards, there was a bit of a
of course, because it's
fair play. Like, I mean, you
have to be competitive, you have to drive standards, but you also have to be realistic. And it's a position I know very well, and it's a fantastic piece of rugby. Even though I'm the opposing coach, I think there's a responsibility for me to acknowledge that. And also I think 1 or 2 of my comments were small, were disappointing, so I don't know, do people in France listen? I'm sure they do, but I think I showed disrespect by saying that it was an average Toulouse team, but this is a team that have won 5 European Cups and have 22 boucliers. So for anyone that probably played for them or an ex-player, those comments are disappointing and small on my behalf, and I accept that now. So I think it's important I say that, because if you're a Josian or a Doucetoir or a Yannick Nienga or Trevor Brennan or Fabien Pelouse, that's their club. What I'm trying to do with La Rochelle is trying to enforce, I suppose, a willpower that we can match these guys, but at the same time you can't obviously diss them and diss their history because it's so powerful.
That's probably the thing, though. I suppose after a match like that, where you have such heavy emotions, you're like, a microphone is going to be stuck in your face, and like, I suppose in that moment you could say anything because you're probably not thinking clearly in the immediate aftermath of a match.
I think you are thinking clearly. I think that's what you have to be able to do. You have to be able to think clearly, but you also have to maybe differentiate a little bit more accurately, because I thought the performance of Toulouse on the night was quite average. That doesn't make them an average team, but if you mix your words, you can sometimes not portray what your inner feelings are. But yes, because you are in match mode straight after a game, but you're bitterly disappointed, but time heals a lot of things, and a few days later you can see where you didn't achieve what you wanted to achieve, but it makes you hungrier and more excited for the season that arrives with a special group of players, but also I suppose emphasises the importance of getting away from it and recharging and coming back. A better coach and a better group.
C'est la plus grande chose du monde, le bouclier. Is it an even bigger thing now? Like, do you become even more obsessed, more determined?
Sometimes over obsession can be an evil. Just because you want something so much, maybe that can lead to more question marks than solutions. It's something we've been aware of in terms of just because you want it, but you have to have a very, very clear vision, I suppose, of how you want to achieve it. So overwant in any discipline is probably leads to over excitement, over appraisal of the task. I think my immediate thoughts at the minute in terms of coming back next season would be that defeat is brilliant because it gives you great lessons. We have to take those lessons, but maybe I think the time for them is hopefully next April, May, June, as opposed to giving them a lecture on the first day back.
Give them a bit of But it's an incredible thing to be able to sit here and say defeat is brilliant. So to be able to separate, because I totally understand that it doesn't make you any less desperate to win it, but to have that as a takeaway to drive next season, to be able to, like, the very few coaches I think that would say
I think so, Adrian. It's, you win a European Cup last year, you win a European Cup this year, you lose in the top 14 final, and we obviously we got beaten by Toulouse in the barrage last season, so there was since we probably started the project, there was 4 titles available. You win 2 in Europe, you don't win France, but you have to be so appreciative and grateful for what's happening. But I think anyone who comes into our environment understands that we create a good environment and we have fun, but we also are serious when we need to work. So these chasing titles is very important, but I think you're going to need to chase performance, because usually one leads to the other. A lot of people get mixed up about that and don't understand that, but from my point of view, it's been a phenomenal season with a great bunch of lads, and that's, I suppose, I say to them, we don't work, we play rugby, we're involved in rugby, and that's our passion. This is what we do. But you mean the lessons you get from Saturday night from not finishing it are incredibly hard to accept, because the flip side of it, you would have created a massive piece of history.
Yeah, and everybody craves it. You crave it, the players crave it, the town craves it, the owner craves it. It's like, I think we chatted last week about your drive and passion infecting everybody else around the European Cup, but this thing needing no explanation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and when you come from 13-3 down to lead 2013, 17 unanswered points. But we didn't find another gear, and that's where we need to get better at, and I think we will be, and we need to understand that, but it makes it very exciting at the same time. It's not really a threatening environment. If you have a desperation environment, you won't get what you want.
Do you have the glass of wine with Ugo Mola after the match, or how does that operate after a final? I suppose it's different after a final.
No, I didn't see him. I met Virgil Lacombe there. I coached him in Racing, a good guy. But I didn't see. The only Toulouse player I saw was. I saw a few of them on the pitch actually. Shook their hand because. I mean, that you saw how much it meant to them too. It's rare you catch Toulouse in a kind of a state of, I suppose, euphoria like that. It's the first time I think Intimac cried, which is a big statement because he's been playing for France for 4 or 5 years now, has he?
Yeah.
Because we'd spoken before the final even about was it an 8-game losing streak before the performance in January, which was a really big win for yourselves over Toulouse.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, exactly. But I think that's something important too for young coaches or anybody who is kind of, I think when you're the coach, you're responsible for when you take, it'd be the same as like saying that Donncha Ryan's record now, Roman Calmignan or Seb Boo-Boo's record is thing, but their record will start when they're the manager. They're involved in it, but they don't have out of respect for them. They toe the line with me and believe in what I'm trying to do, but you can be sure that there are certain things that they do differently, and that's what, all due respect to them, because everyone is different and they see it differently. And but yeah, since I took over, it was we had played them 5 times I think up to last weekend, and we had only won one game, but we had 2 red cards. What was pleasing the last weekend was
discipline
from because discipline it's too loose a word, If we didn't have cards but we weren't disciplined,
right?
We had a back chat, which in a French top 14 final, which brought Ramos into kicking range. Those things are
small margins.
Yeah, but they're huge.
Would you be the Mola point? Like, would it be normal that you'd go in and have a glass of wine or a beer afterwards?
No. Not that type of culture. I presume there's a lot of relationships established between probably a few of the longer serving coaches in the top 14. Like there isn't really any because it's a slog and you have so many games. It's Saturday. Like there's sometimes it's
not always possible or whatever.
Yeah, you don't have. We're not that
I was really asking about the
where
beef.
we have a glass of red wine and some.
I'm projecting my own wishes onto.
At midnight beef. You play at 9 o'clock, which a lot of the big teams do.
No chance. Yeah.
It's you could easily, but
it's late. Do you chat to him afterwards? Is the beef still there, or is it?
There's nothing there. It's never. I don't know the guy.
Yeah.
So.
You don't like each other though. I think that's. I mean,
he can speak for himself. I have no feelings on that because what I said in the lead up to the game, which I stood by, is his opinion on us in Europe or us. It was actually in the semi-final. Has of no relevance because we're not playing them. Like that's something. But I think it shows that we're probably. A big rival to them now.
Yeah.
On that, what's the attitude towards La Rochelle as a club within France? Because I suppose we're slightly removed from that aspect of it. Like, how are they perceived? How are they viewed? Are they a team that people love to hate? Or are they a team that people are welcoming this kind of resurgence?
No, but I suppose it's only there was probably a lot of maybe surprise disbelief that we won a European Cup last year.
Within France.
Yeah, exactly.
Is that remember we chatted about the begrudgers comment in the Examiner last week, and it was only afterwards that we were chatting about it. Is that like is that the feeling in France? Like there's so much respect for everything that you've done in Britain and in here, but maybe it's within France. Is that the kind of?
No, I don't think so. But sure, once we won this European Cup final, there's an acceptance that this is a serious team, and we would have taken it to a whole new level, and we would not need to, I suppose, talk, because the act of winning the double closes all discussions. What we have to do now is we have to make sure that we start the season strong, and we're a force to be reckoned with, but I've no doubt we will be. How we're seen in France is I think, is it Toulouse of 9 in the French 42? We have 8, so they're a little bit ahead of us, but we don't have Georges-Henri Colm, who I think could maybe make the squad if he gets a break, Thomas Lavaux and Jules Favre, and then we would have Sandro, who's a prop for Georgia. We have Joel Sclavi propping for Argentina, Will Skelton obviously for Australia, Lavinia Bottia 7 for France, Soutini, Samoa, I would make a big case for Raymond Rule and Dylan Lades for wingers for South Africa, but they seem to have a very, I suppose, closed group or an established group that they believe in. But for me, they're well capable of shining at test level.
I remember Brian Cody saying years ago, it was after Kilkenny were on some sort of a 6 or 7, they'd won 6 or 7 All-Ireland in a row, whatever, it wasn't that many, but they'd won 6 or 7 out of 8 or 9 years, whatever it was, and there was nobody would have a bad word to say about them, and he came out after the All-Stars, they got maybe they got 10 places on the team of 15, and Brian Cody was apoplectic about it. He was like, I can't believe this, what disrespect they're showing this Kilkenny team. Is there a little bit of that as well? That
I know, but sure, why?
That Toulouse are getting because I saw Hastoy, there's quotes carried in the Examiner this morning from that piece he did in the Olympique during the week about the 8 players selected and the job that you've done and all that, but there's no does that feed into the disrespect or no?
No. Listen, Adrian, there'll be no doubt about this. Whatever way you look at it, Toulouse are worthy winners of the top 14. They have the medal. It's done. It'll never change. That's it. And from my point of view, there's disappointment there, but there's a deep respect for what they do as a club.
Yeah.
And to feel that we are what's the word, tainted, is it, or not given enough respect, that wouldn't be my sentiment one bit at all. No.
You mentioned about Ugamola there, Leo Cullen. It just struck me last night that you have been in each other's environment for over 20 years. It's incredible, really, between, and quite often in the red heat of battle as well, in the fiery interpros over the years, and then obviously in a court. There's probably nobody that you've been in competition with as much as him over that period of time.
Yeah, I didn't think about it like that, but and he's a very probably underappreciated competitor. I think a lot of guys think that he's more manager role. Yeah, he'd have that overseeing role, but I think this guy is a serious operator with a burning desire inside him to make his club the best club in the world, and he's very much succeeded because they've become anyone who wants personal development or have a look what's a humming environment, they go home and spend a week in Leinster. That's the reality, and that's the model he's created, which is all credit to him. But I agree with you. I think you may find that he'd be more observing, but I wouldn't. I can't comment accurately because I'm not in there. But Leo was always a great competitor, smart, but he had a nice edgy side to him. But what's, I suppose, important for me to say on record would be the fact that I've always remained in contact with him for the last 20 years. There's been times when you can't, how can you get on, because it's Munster or Leinster, it's La Rochelle or Leinster, but there's always been a text of respect sent either way.
Right. Yeah, I did wonder about that, about do you get a chance after the final to sit down?
Yeah. Not this final, last final we did, they were incredibly gracious guy used to be Stuart, and Leo came for a beer, you know. So that's tough, because if I was going for a beer after Saturday night, to lose trains, you know,
crying into
midnight,
you know what I mean, that's very important.
It's hard, like, isn't it, when you're in that, you're trying to be as magnanimous as you can.
It shows I suppose the level of the person and people you're dealing with. That's very, very sporting on their behalf.
What was your immediate reaction when you saw the draw for the Heineken Champions Cup come through, and you saw that Leinster were again pulled out of the hat?
Unbelievable, because we have a staff group and we got version 1 of the draw, and then we were having lunch together, and then one of the members of staff said that isn't your pool.
Oh, it was like a pre-draw.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And that was sent on to the staff WhatsApp, so we were like, geez, that's a good draw.
Okay.
It was in that one. It was in that one.
Oh, wow.
What a stinker. Like,
oh, wow.
What's going to happen there? Like, so you play 4.
That staff member able to come back from that post to see.
He thought it was the actual.
Oh, yeah, that was. Yeah, right. So talk about getting, it's a good start to our day.
Delete.
Yeah, but pool 4 is juicy.
Oh, say the least.
Yeah, but sure.
Nothing confirmed yet as to whether it's going to be there or here. Is that the venues of TBC?
No idea yet.
And you won't
there
play
isn't much. It's quite difficult comprehension of the understanding of who is home and why, isn't it?
And also you can't play a team that's
kind of 6 asterisks about why it could be a home game for you.
Why don't they just simplify the thing?
Yeah, but
that'd be too easy. Make too much sense.
It's a weird fixture to have now. There's no great satisfaction in it for anybody either way. It's not like, you know, if Leinster managed to finally beat you, that it's any kind of redemption. And on your side, you just have to go about it as sort of business as usual. We need to win this game. Like, it's a weird
there's no
setup.
There's very little jeopardy in the system. So, like, I don't know if shadowboxing comes into it at all when that game eventually comes around. But there could be an element, I presume, of that. You don't want to show your full hand necessarily if you're say already guaranteed.
It depends if you need points or not, because the other teams are. So you could have a situation where you go away to Sale, isn't it? Then you can go away to Stormers, and then home to Leinster. You know, that's, with all due respect, those games could go either way. You know, so
the demand for tickets from here, your phone will be off the charts. Like, it's what a weekend away. Is it only 2 teams go through from?
Isn't it? It's 2 out of the. So it's 6. You play each team. So you have 4 games.
Yeah, you play. There's 6 teams in the group, and you only play 4 of them.
Yeah, because we don't play Star France.
2 that go through maybe, and I don't know. It's a weird system. It's they should try and simplify it if they can.
Well, the old Heineken Cup system was, I think, a sweet spot, wasn't it? I mean, the way they used to do it seemed perfect, but I guess
but then there was always people giving out then about the whatever team got the 2 Italian teams, you know. But I think they've progressed sufficiently now at this stage, you know. But like, it was always the 2 best runners up came from those pools, which made it very lopsided for those teams that were lucky enough to get those teams at the time. But yeah, it's a I suppose a programme that's difficult to follow at this stage.
We've some lovely comments coming in, and I'll get to them in a second, but a few quickfire ones before that. You were working with, was it Galway last year you were working with?
I know I wasn't working with.
Or you were doing bits of...
Yeah, I spoke to, obviously, Pádraig Joyce and be in contact with him. And
are you doing any of that this year? With any team?
No.
You have to think about that.
Not on the record, like.
No, I can't get back. I would like to, and it's great because few people reach out, so you get to visit a few teams, you know. But I haven't. I'm in text conversations with a few teams, but not
football.
Cold.
All right, the other one.
Warm.
Not like the moon landings last week. I think I was very warm with the theme aspect.
Yeah, you were. No, but I'm not genuine. I will have a look at that now because there's a break in my season, you know.
Yeah. Hurling.
Yeah.
Limerick?
No. Couldn't do that. I couldn't pick a Munster team.
Just trying to think who would be likely to. Henry Shefflin is probably a man who's.
No, I haven't. I genuinely haven't been talking to. I was talking to Porrick, Joyce, but I haven't been over to Galway this year.
When we chatted to you last week, you brought up the GA at the end. Are you getting to Páirc Uí Chaoimh tomorrow at the playing Roscommon in the?
No, I'm home.
Get down
tonight.
Out of Dodge.
You know the coach well.
Yes.
I'll be glued to the telly. The curtain will be across to keep the sun away.
A few beers open. That's the key to that.
I don't need beers for watching sport. But geez, the hurling is
incredible at the minute,
isn't it? What a sport.
Yeah. At its best. What's your go-to, like outside of rugby?
Yeah, I love the
hurling.
Yeah, and the football.
Yeah,
I love the GA and the.
Do you watch much soccer?
Saturday. Yeah.
Do you watch a bit of it? Are you sort of just anything
the
that's
kids
on?
Love soccer.
Do they?
Yeah. So I've obviously.
Ugo Lloris, I think you were talking to us before.
Yeah. But one of my boys is a big Man United fan.
Right.
So, and then the youngest is a Liverpool fan.
They love
it. They love it, but
you're a Liverpool fan, are you?
Yeah, but it's 90 minutes. It's a campaign drive sometimes.
Yeah,
a long time. The game.
You're not you're not looking at it with the coach's hat on.
No,
appreciating the.
No, even though you have to admire what Man City did, obviously, you know.
Yeah.
Guardiola's serious driver of men.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier on about like people going into the Leinster environment, so that sort of thing where people go to different coaches. Have you had people in?
Yeah. They come. It's getting busy now, you know, but I'd be very open on that. Just come in and they can have anything or everything.
Really?
Yeah, I think it's because we're already kind of. That's the present, but like I'm already projecting about where you need to get your game to, you know. So you're always thinking about the now, but also. But I think it's very important too that you share, you know. That was what I got out of the Crusaders, you know. They were very open, and when people are good to you, I think you need to be good to people back, you know. That's the way I work.
Would you be a big reader?
Yeah, I enjoy reading, but when I didn't have kids, obviously I read an awful lot, but now that's parked for a lot, you know. You need your sleep.
Possible. Yeah.
You know, that's priority.
Or you read a page and then you're asleep.
Yeah, exactly. But it doesn't last more than a page. Because you're literally shattered.
We got away went to the Monaco Grand Prix a few weeks ago, which in itself was an exceptional experience.
Oh wow, yeah.
Incredible. But I managed to read half a book because we went without the kids. It was like
what's happening here?
A window into life where you could actually have a bit of time to yourself.
Yeah, that was it when holidays, when you didn't have kids, I used to read different books.
It is that thing on the theming aspect you probably get, like even Ronnie O'Sullivan was sitting in that seat with us recently, and he was talking about reading a book by this climber guy who climbed Yosemite National Park in America, Tommy Caldwell, and like he was getting little tidbits for his own sports psychology from books. Something similar.
There's definitely nuggets there, you know. There's some brilliant books. Some brilliant books recommended by. It doesn't matter who recommends them.
Yeah.
What is it? The one? There's a few good nuggets in The Obstacle Becomes the Way. I don't think that's the title, but a lot of people see the obstacle as something that stops you. But if you actually change your mindset or change your perception, the obstacle becomes the solution.
Yeah,
it's interesting, you know.
Different way of thinking.
Yeah.
You're still going in for the odd dip, I presume, are you? Out the front and out the gap, and then you go all year round?
No. I'm quite late to start this year, but I've started a few weeks ago, and it changes the head completely, you know. You're kind of wondering, will I, won't I?
Yeah.
And after cold water, it's even though it's not very cold at all.
The Wim Hof.
You're not cold when you come out, you know, which is weird. While in Ireland, you're searching for some parts.
Yeah. The Wim Hof. Do you follow that guy? He's the one, the cold water.
that was on posted on these pages last week, was it?
Something.
Some records, doesn't he?
Method,
He had tragedy in his life years ago, and he came up with this thing of cold water therapy. You immerse yourself in cold water. I think it's like if you do 11 minutes a week, it's supposed to be very good for the head. In any like in a one-off, in a one setting, or
does that mean your head has to be underneath?
I don't know. No, I think it's just body.
Jeez, it'd be seeking a lot of
I get the flat
headaches, wouldn't you, if you were underneath the water?
Oh, not for that length. No, but he like
flat white afterwards, he'd be sorted.
Exactly.
You would be, but yeah, you kind of less coffee season now in the summer, isn't it?
Right.
It's coffee season all year round.
Yeah, well, it is in Ireland.
I can't shake the image of you out in Dalkey last night, or Blackrock last night, with the swing in the Champions Cup. I'm sure it's not true.
There was no cups.
Was there a bit of crack out there about it?
There was good.
Yeah.
There were nice, really nice clientele.
There's some lovely comments coming in. What is your, so you mentioned holidays, a little bit of a breather, downtime. Will you just totally decompress from anything to do with the game, or will you be, because I know you've spoken before about bringing the laptop and...
No, I won't bring the laptop, but as you say, you might find a book which
give you inspiration,
but it's not as if I dislike my work, I just think it's very important that you actually make 2 weeks very different to the other 50 of the year.
Yeah.
Do you get me? So it's not, there's nothing like routine, or you just have to go to a place where you don't know and just embrace it.
Yeah. We've seen various exports go to various parts of the world. We've had Trevor Brennan and other people who go to these places, and then their kids grow up, and you're like, oh, when they get a bit older now, they'll come back and they'll play for Ireland, and it's not always the case. What about the O'Garas?
Oh yeah, we'll always come back, I think that's for certain. It's just it's fast at the minute, I think that game is fine margins, as you know, and the project I'm in at the minute is only starting, so it's very, very exciting, because it's good people you care about. It's not as if it's just thrown together club, The president has a lot of good values. He's 73. Vincent Merling, Cafe Merling, has created a nice club where respect and honesty are mentioned daily.
Right.
Humility is mentioned daily, and I think that's it is nice, because it becomes powerful when you respect the values, as opposed to a lot of environments you go to, words are plastered on the wall, but they mean nothing. But I think when you play close to what your values mean, it creates bonds, and bonds create, I suppose, different opportunity for boys of 20 years of age to 37 years of age that want to do something together. So it sounds maybe complicated or far-fetched, but it isn't. It's very, very simple.
You say you're at the start of the journey. Like you don't look at something like, say, the 2027 World Cup in 4 years' time and say, I'd like to be there by that point. Like, are you taking it very much more short-term than that, or is it you have a plan in your head as to where you'd like to be?
Yeah, it'd be very unlikely I'd be at the 2027 World Cup.
Involved with anyone?
Yeah, because it's obviously changes very quickly. I realise that, but the Ireland will have Andy Farrell, if Andy Farrell wants to go to 2027, and Fabien Galtier is going to 2027. So they're the two that probably appeal the most.
Your kids are playing all sorts of sports. When they get that bit older, will there be any question about the allegiance?
No, but I suppose what you do learn is that their parents are from Cork and are hugely proud of where we come from. But for them, what we've seen so far, it's a long way off having a choice to play to play for an international team. Believe me.
Well, they come from good stock. It's not entirely unlikely, and they're playing away. A couple of them are playing.
Yeah, they are, but they're like they're 14 is the eldest. You need to just take a breath.
Cool the boots a bit.
Correct. in his head sometimes, you know what I mean, with Instagram they think that, you mean they have all the gear, but believe me, when it comes to it,
listen,
you know, but that's, you can't stop kids dreaming, you know. That's very important too. So, but what's important is what I see is to step back, get away from it, you know. And if you want to watch, I think watch, but it's very rare I go and watch because of my timetable, which is disappointing. And the kids say that, well, Dad doesn't come and watch me play, you know. I'm like, oh,
that's hard.
That hurts, you know. But then what you don't want to be is that busy parent on the sideline giving their opinion. Just, it's the kids' time. Let them play.
Let them at it, like.
Let them express themselves. They have fun. At 20 or 18, they can start getting worried about winning medals and stuff, you know. But I think at that age, if they can play a number of different sports, they might it could contribute to a better player or athlete at that stage.
Yeah, my 7-year-old is trying to figure out which country he's trying to decide which country will I play for. He doesn't quite understand that. I mean, that's
Grealish and Declan Rice.
It's hard to get there to begin with, and it doesn't quite work like that.
But it can. Why not him?
Oh no, totally. But and I wouldn't discourage him. But just he's not sure would it be Ireland or he has a connection for France. It seems. I think it's Mbappe led. To be honest, but
he saw Mbappe live at a game recently. They went to see.
Your kids meet Mbappe and Messi.
Yeah, Angers are playing Paris Saint-Germain. So Angers is near La Rochelle. You know, it's a 2-hour drive maybe. So one of the sponsors, I think, has a dual sponsorship with us and them. So we got the royal treatment.
Class.
Yeah, it was. It was very interesting to see. Just cool watching what a soccer warm-up is and how you know you've picked the wrong choice when there's so much contact in rugby. These guys are just kind of like dancing around a few little abductor stretches.
That's right.
Talking like this.
That's right. And it's only a matter of time before that comes into rugby. You know, the lip readers are out there.
But just the acceleration in real life of Mbappe. Wow. Yeah, because we had is it Tunisian right back who plays for Paris Saint-Germain, Kamimi or no, maybe not. Who was it? Moroccan.
Ashraf Hakimi.
Yeah. He's fast too, you know. He bolts up and down the sideline, you know, and you see an awful lot of walk off the ball stuff. Obviously, when you're in the ground on TV, you don't, unless you have maybe. Well, there's some great, obviously, angles on TV, but yeah, just to see the acceleration of Mbappe. Messi was only in second gear that night. He wasn't too pushed, you know. Sergio Ramos was impressive. He had presence on the pitch, you know. But it was just it's such a different game, and like I suppose most things when you're in a stadium you get to appreciate how they push, isn't it, and they close teams down. And because in telly you think they have a load of time on the ball, and why is he stressed about that?
That's right.
It isn't that easy to pick a pass.
80 seconds.
You'll be back in when the next franchise is opened in some other salubrious surrounds in South Dublin. But for the minute, thanks a million for coming in. Enjoy the break.
Thank you.
And congrats on the season.
Good man. Thanks, Adrian Shane. Cheers, boys.
Ronan O'Gara there. If you're still using the old Off the Ball app, by the way, there is a new app en route, and so head into the App Store or the Play Store sometime soon, and it will be available for you to pick up. So head along there and update your app. We have Loughlin to come, the Westmeath footballer, after a brilliant season for them. But before that, some more post-match reaction from Tala last night. Kathleen chatting to the Republic of Ireland manager, Vera Powell.
There was a very obvious difference between the first and the second half, and the changes that came in, and even the players who stayed on, you know, Abby Larkin and Claire both stayed on, and you could really see the two of them lift their game in that second half.
Yeah, to Abby, I said laterally, don't listen to all those people with all good reasons, and they want it good for you, but everybody's talking to you, trying to do what others say. Her quality is to play the game with a feeling, to solve situations, and to do it in a way that nobody else can. then. And she's very young, so she wants to listen to everybody. But I said, just forget everything, and you are going to play your own game now, the second half. And I give you the complete freedom to play and to solve the situation how you feel that you need to do it. And the response is so nice to see then, yeah.
And just before Amber scored her goal, not the penalty, the second one, you were shouting some instructions at her from the sideline. Do you remember what you were saying to her?
Yeah, that she had to go length. Yeah, that she had to take off, because that's her strength. Yeah.
Is that why she got the big thumbs up afterwards when she was running away, wheeling, scoring her goal?
Yeah, and we had a few conversations about, and that with all the players, but with her today we had, this is your chance. This is your chance. Don't hide yourself or put in a corner and have the fear of not doing well.
Yeah, we're fully dialed into the Republic of Ireland at this stage now, obviously in the eve of the World Cup, and you can check out long-form conversation, reaction to the game last night. Kathleen with the Koi Gig podcast is available now in the wherever it is that you listen to your podcast. Michael Murray's been in touch on YouTube to say thanks to OTB and Ronan for allowing us into this open, intimate and life-affirming conversation, and that kind of sums up how we spent the last 40 minutes or thereabouts. We're moving on to GAA now. We're going to preview the Galway-Mayo game in just a little bit, but before that we wanted to have one final reaction from last weekend's absolute drama in the last round of group games in the All-Ireland Football Championships, and to do that I'm delighted to say Westmeath footballer Luke Loughlin is on the line. Morning, Luke.
Morning, lads. How are you getting on? Good,
thanks for being patient there. We were running over a little bit, so appreciate that.
It's my fault with the technical difficulties. My phone, I think, thought it was Saturday.
We've just been chatting to Ronan O'Gara about the aftermath of a defeat in a high profile game, and how you can sort of, he wasn't saying he wallowed in it necessarily, but it takes a toll.
Definitely very hard to follow Ronan O'Gara, so be careful what I say. It's tough to take. Like, we obviously drew the game, but very much so in Westmeath it feels like a loss, because we were so close. Like, I know there was a time at that stage, like in the game, where we thought we had to win by, I think, 4 or 5, and like we obviously worked on calls for that to try and get goals, like, throw the kitchen sink at it basically. But we're lucky here in the way that we were straight into club football this week, and I suppose that's how you get on with it. Like, I was talking to someone during the week, maybe about defeats, and for 2 seconds when I was on the pitch, it's the worst moment, it's the worst feeling in the world. But then when you get a little older, you just think of things you're grateful for, you soak in the atmosphere, and you just worry how can you get better the next time, or how can you make sure that doesn't happen. And that's all you can do. Like, at the end of the day, it's a game, and that's it, really. It's
a very mature outlook. The Aidan O'Shea stuff at the end of the Mayo game, where it, by all accounts, seems like he didn't know that he needed to just knock it over the bar, and it came up short. And you mentioned there about the various calls. Did John or did any know on the pitch that, because I think the Shane Walsh stuff with Galway was playing out almost simultaneously. Did you know, knock this over and we're through, or we've a good chance?
Actually, 2 minutes before the free, David Lynch, wing back, he does a lot of the calls and stuff. He's just brilliant that sort of way, he's just so clued in. He said, right, we need a goal at least, because we felt like we were going to win. But then when Myler touched the ball on the ground and it was a free in, Lynchy, the same fella, said, he goes, if we score this and we just don't let them get the ball, we're through. It was someone got it on. Someone got it on to me anyway. Like, so I don't know if everyone knew that, but look, it's hard. It is tough, but like, as a sports person, these sort of things make you stronger. Like, they make you want to get back there anyway. Like, everyone, like in my message requests on Instagram, like, I've lads there saying, message me all week, you should have fucking bet Armagh, like, this is just this week here now, and they don't get it at all. But I just find that I'm already thinking about next year. Like, you're probably going to ask me anyway. Like, we're such a poor league for the talent that we have, and the only, like, going forward, getting promoted is just, it's a no-brainer. It's the only thing that can happen for this team anyway.
What happened there, Luke? So everybody's familiar with the highs of last year, and I think that probably most people were hoping that the Tailteann Cup was going to live out the expectation of it, as in you're playing teams at similar level, you're playing loads of games, high profile games, high pressure games, Croke Park games, and so the net result of all of that is that you hit the league running, you're thereabouts for promotion, and not far off, to be fair. But the Louth game as well obviously was a big disappointment. What do you think? What do you put that down to?
There's probably a few factors in everything. Like, I'm not joking. I'll say this to get it out of the way first. A bit of luck, honestly. Like the Louth game, like we were in at half time and we just probably hadn't got the time to practice what we got better at in later games. We just came up short, saying closing out a game or holding on to the ball. If we held on to the ball against Louth the way we did against Armagh at times, we'd have won. It's as simple as that, if we had that control. But in the league, it's hard to know. Like, you'd 5 Downs panellists coming back in late. Like, there's a big thing. You have 5 lads, at a high level. Then coming up to the first round against Cavan, I don't think a lot of people didn't really know what to expect. Like, we had a lot of injuries, Like, there was 5 lads carrying knocks on the bench that were like down to start. Obviously, just throw off Cavan maybe or whatever, just put a team out. But like, they're not near right. And a league, you want to be able to put new lads in and to blend them into the team. But just this year at Westmeath, just the way injuries fell, we just couldn't really do that. And then I just found we just didn't really get much fluidity in a team, and that's very hard, when you're trying different lads and getting used to a new coaching, and like, not that much has changed, but like J.O.'s influence is clear to see there towards the end with the way we played, but maybe he just didn't get long enough with us at the start of the year as well. There's lots of things. Maybe our pre-season as well didn't start early enough. But
what do you mean by the J.O. influence?
Well, like, you can see the control there, like. Well, no, I'm not comparing us to Dublin, but just the way they were able to control games and hold on to the ball. I think a few years ago they were the first to start it. Now you see Roscommon doing it now. That's just obviously a different tactic. But at times we were the better team by a far bit in the last few games. Now the Galway game towards the end, they just basically just kicked it into 6th gear when we had the man sent off. But in the Armagh and Tyrone game, like, when we were holding on to the ball, we just were in total control, like, knew what we were at. Whereas maybe in the Louth game, we were up because we're a talented team. There's no doubt, there's no denying that. We've good forwards, we've good players all over, but we had no real control, like, in the second half at all. We had no one to settle it down, whereas we got so much better in that in short space of time,
It's funny, Luke, like, you look at the positives as well, and people often talk about the gap between the Division 1 league teams and I guess the rest, but you're essentially after having a mini Division 1 campaign, albeit Armagh, I know, got relegated from Division 1 this year, but then Tyrone and Galway as well. Like, is the gap narrower than maybe you would have thought in advance? Because everyone looked at that group and, with all due respect to Westmeath, thought there's 3 defeats for Westmeath, they're going to prop up that group, but it was certainly not as easy as it was in some people's heads for those teams playing yourselves.
No, it didn't really. To be honest, I actually felt going up to Armagh we were going to win. Just something in the cap. I think just no fear. Genuinely, like, we had nothing to lose. Like, if we got hammered in that game, it's what people would have thought anyway. So that's what people. So we never bought into that, and the performance then obviously gave us great confidence going forward. That, geez, we're not a mile off here. But like, there's a few small things. Well, this is just my opinion. I think conditioning is a bit like, and maybe panel. Being able to bring lads in that are just as good as starters. Like, I just think the top teams have genuine, like, better players on the bench sometimes, and I would say, like, we've got, obviously, if you're in the county panel, you're obviously a brilliant player, like, but they've just got that X factor coming off the bench, finishing a game, and that is a big thing. Like, if you have a lad that's as good as your starting corner forward coming on, and he's going on to a lad that's after running around for 45-50 minutes, like there's only going one way, like, you know what I mean?
Is that squad thing, is that improving in Westmeath? Like, are the players there, I suppose, is what I'm asking. Like, do you think over the next couple of years that can be amended to where Westmeath have 20, 22, 23 players that can come in and do damage?
Yeah, definitely, yeah. Just it's getting the younger lads up to the conditioning of, say, maybe the older lads. Like, you go out and watch a club game there, and a young lad he could be the best player on the pitch, but just put him on a county pitch and it's just not the same. It's hard to explain, like, the difference. Like, even some lads might get, well, like, I'm not just saying this, but Canavan there, like, he's coming now, how many years? Like, he's obviously a brilliant player and so talented, but, like, he's turned into a man now, like, and it's just, he might not be the biggest, but see him at the weekend just bouncing off lads, you know. Like, there's not many lads like that able to do that from a young age, you know.
Just as we wrap up, Luke, I was interested in your comment about, like, the bit of slice of luck that could have gone your way. Like, I took from what you were saying that, so I was at the Kildare game last year and there was only 3 points between the teams at the end, but it felt like an awful lot, and there was a chance to win it. Westmeath got a goal at the end, but obviously didn't materialise, but it did feel as if there was more than 3 points between them. While been at some of the games this year, like you've described, it feels like that's, looking at Westmeath, it's very clear that they're playing at their level against some of the best teams in the country. Do you feel that that's, in terms of, like, the old cliche about turning the corner, but that's now Westmeath's level?
Yeah, well, like, that's what you have to be striving for. Like, if you're not growing or trying to get better, you're going over, like, to be honest, and you obviously want to get to the top. So for us to get there, like, I'm not saying we're going to win All Ireland here, or I'm not going to say that, but, like, you want to be making strides, and especially with, just say, on a personal level, like, I want to leave the jersey in a better place than I got. So when I got it, was in around the same Division 2, Division 3. So you want to be a top Division 2 team. That's where I'm at least striving for, because then those Division 2 teams are able to beat Division 1 teams. It's kind of all in and around the same level, you know. So yeah, it's not that the levels are. There's a clear difference between Division 1 and everyone else, but the top Division 2 teams aren't too far off. So you just have to be striving to get better every year, you know.
Yeah, the difficulty now will be that people expect you'll have no more disrespect. The likes of Shane saying about, did you overperform or any of the, or I know our producer texted you about overperformance.
Not me.
I'm not having any of that.
That's alright. Yeah, it's alright. The glitch, you could have talked about that there when we had the glitch there a few minutes got past it. No, it's alright.
But you were saying, Luke, you had the fellas in your Instagram message request. Like, is that a common thing?
Yeah, it would be. Yeah, well, just there, like, I would post, not so much now the last while, I'm quite kind of quiet on social media, but just kind of in terms of, say, my sobriety and trying to live a better life, you would get, say, people nearly asking for some sort of advice on how to get out of the rut they're in or whatever. Or see, my problem is I can't say no to anyone. I just cannot say no. And I'm like, if someone comes up to me in the street and wants to talk about, say, Lomans, and like he's talking bad mouthing them, I'm there listening, like, as if, and if anyone heard the conversation, it's like I'm talking about them, you know. So yeah, that's all good fun, you know. At the end of the day, it's not too light. You have to take everything with a pinch of salt and be quite lighthearted and enjoy it. That's the most important thing.
Yeah, well, you're a great ambassador for sobriety, and we've spoken to you in depth about that before. We'll chat to you about it again down the track, and I hope that we're chatting to you again in 6-8 months after promotion and 8-9 months after a good run into deep into the All Ireland as well. So
yeah, sounds good. Bit of luck.
We'll do that. Luke, thanks a million.
Lads, have a good weekend. Take it easy.
You too. Luke Loughlin on the line there. That's a refreshing conversation, I have to say, to have had. Like, it's I found myself in the middle of the conversation getting excited about next year already.
Yeah,
like that the players are expecting. We're going to beat Armagh.
You could kind of tell watching that Westmeath Armagh game. I remember watching it that evening, and you could tell Westmeath there was no bones that this is a top Armagh team that possibly were kicking the ball from an All Ireland semi-final last year or more. Like, Westmeath were definitely in that game, and I think they'll be kicking themselves certainly now that they didn't get something out of it. But and even at the weekend, that John Heslin free, like, you see the angle from the stand, and it's just you could tell he was maybe nervous kicking it because the way in which he kicked it, he missed the far post.
Well, I think he was trying to. He had already scored 9 points. John Heslin owed nothing to that game, and he owes nothing to Westmeath. Like, is, without doubt, I would challenge anybody, one of the finest footballers in the country
getting any team,
for the best part of the last decade. And there's no question about that. And people don't know enough about him because he's playing for Westmeath, and that's unfortunate. But hopefully he's got a bit of a kick now in the Indian.
He's on Conor McManus'
but there'd have been no at least.
Yeah, but my point is McManus is playing for a Division 1 team. That's why.
No, totally.
If Heslin was
you're
the
right.
same.
But there would have been no hesitancy about. He would have been uber confident that he could kick that over, and it was the I was listening to it on the radio. Did I mention that earlier on? I was listening to it on the radio, and the commentator, a tough angle, Heslin's lining it up, and it's gone over the bar, and I'm losing the plot. I'm losing the plot in the car, Shane. The three kids are in the back and they're laughing their heads off because they don't know what's going on, and I'm losing the plot. And then he says, I got about 5 or 6 seconds of ecstasy.
Yeah.
Ecstasy.
At least you got that.
The Galway-Mayo game was still playing out, so I still wasn't sure, but I thought, this is unbelievable.
Yeah.
And then the bubble,
because the umpire took a few seconds to go.
The umpire has waved it wide.
Oh Jesus! Yeah,
killer. And he could have easily given it, but to be fair, you watch the video, Heslin walks away. He knows himself it's not over. It is the width of a post, though.
Oh, it's marginal. It's definitely marginal. But I found myself even chatting to Luke. I remember speaking to Luke before, on the show, and such an inspiring story. And I found myself even during the Armagh game properly supporting Westmeath.
Yeah,
I was born in Armagh, but properly supporting Westmeath. Because of characters like Luke, who are just, as you say, great ambassadors.
They have a great team. They really do. I made the point a year and a half ago or more that having seen them, look, it was against Longford in Leinster quarter final in Mullingar, so there's always context, but they put together 20 minutes there that you could tell there was the bones of something, and they do have brilliant individual players. Really interesting to hear what he has to say about Jason Sherlock's influence as well.
And I think it's always nice to support your county when you have a local management team as well. When you see the likes of Desi Dolan and John Kane as well involved, it just helps, doesn't it? I just like seeing counties.
I don't mind that. If we're succeeding, I don't care.
Well, of course, it doesn't really matter. If Paddy O'Shea wants to take the reins, let him at it.
Whoever wants to come in. I had a big push on for Tomas O'Shea not that long ago, so I'm and that might happen down the track after we won it All Ireland. Right, it is 5 minutes past 9 o'clock, and you're watching OTB AM with Gillette Labs. Get the ultimate shave or your money back. Neon Night edition is available now. We have Alan Quinlan to come. We're going to look ahead to the Under-20 World Championship in just a little bit, so that's all coming up down the track. But before all of that, we're turning our attention to the game of the weekend, possibly the game of the year. It's the All-Ireland football quarter-final preliminaries. It's Galway against Mayo. It's Salt Hill. It's Sunday. It's 3 o'clock, and I'm delighted to say to preview the game in the maroon corner, Gary Sice, and the red and green corner, Keith Higgins. Welcome, gentlemen.
Morning. That's our things.
We'll get into the game properly in a second, but is there any nagging feeling that no matter the outcome of the game on Sunday, that there's sort of significant doubts been raised about both teams, Keith?
I think so, yeah. I think if last Sunday had gone, I suppose, according to plan, as both teams would have liked, you're looking at a week's break here, clear up injuries, and both teams are probably Ireland contenders at this stage. You're kind of questioning both. So yeah, I think last Sunday had a big bearing on both teams. I think probably even just from a goal point of view with the injuries that they have, the fact that they've had that last week to kind of get them cleared up, there's doubts over a few players whether they be fully fit. And then from a Mayo point of view, all the momentum they had after that Kerry game I think is gone. So yeah, there's definitely question marks over both.
What do you think, Gary? Are they just both of them all still blowing off the cobwebs at this stage of the year? There's more to come, or big doubts?
Oh, I think we're in big doubt territory now at the minute for both of them, especially after last weekend. I think kicking the ball for Galway, and we're talking All Ireland contenders still, but now we have injuries to some major players, and we are going into a weekend against the old foe, and it's toss of a coin, and it's not the way things should have gone because things were going so well before that. But it's definitely they're not in the contenders bracket at the minute based on last weekend.
Yeah, the teams obviously named last night, and Sean Kelly and Damien Comer both named in the starting 15. I watched Comer come off the bench in Mullingar a few weeks ago and sort of kicked 3 or 4 points, but limped around, looked like he might have come off again. And obviously Pádraig Joyce pulled the old switcheroo with him ahead of the Armagh game last weekend as well. Are they going to start? What's the word?
I think things are very quiet. There's very, very little about it. I think they have to. I don't think there can be any shadow boxing this weekend. I think if Damien is good to go, he's 60-70%, he has to play. I think we need to get them together, himself and Shane and Ian up front, and I think it'll cause problems even on one leg for Mayo at the weekend if that's the way things have to be. The problem you have then is going forward, what happens if we get over the weekend. As far as Sean Kelly goes, it didn't look good at the weekend. He came off in a boot, and he's probably pound for pound one of the best players in the country at the minute, top performer for us, and it probably can't be without him really. So everybody in Galway is hopeful, I'm sure, that he can participate at the weekend.
Keith, I suppose everyone talking about home advantage for this one, but I guess when you look at Mayo's record in Salt Hill, it's not half bad. John Fogarty's writing in the Irish Examiner this morning as well about even something as simple in Salt Hill as the importance of winning the toss. I think it's given a bit of rain and maybe some usual Salt Hill wind as well at the weekend. So, I mean, how important is that home advantage, and even winning that toss as well, because it can be worth a few points?
Yeah, I think there's a few things in that. I think first of all, the fact that it's not in McHale Park, I don't think too many Mayo people will be complaining about that. Our record there, you look at the performances there over the last few years, probably haven't been great. You know, Salt Hill, like you mentioned there, the conditions are definitely going to play a big part. And I remember having this conversation with Gary, I think, before even the Connacht final, and you know, if there's a bit of a breeze at all, you'd nearly kind of favour Go. I just think they have better long distance kickers. You know, you look at like if Comer plays Walsh, if Tierney, Cook, Conroy, all those boys could easily pop balls from 40-50 yards with that breeze behind them. I'm not sure if Mayo have that kind of firepower even with the breeze, but conditions definitely do play a big part. The fact that it's in Salt Hill, I don't think it'll bother either team, to be honest, but I think more so just the fact that it's not in McHale Park would be a plus for Mayo at this stage. You know, the performances there just haven't been great over the last number of years.
Kelly O'Connor came through a club game as well, a full senior league game with Ballintubber last weekend. Keith as well, 2-6 scored against Ballinrobe, his first competitive game in 10 weeks. He of course has had that hamstring injury, so a good sign that he's back involved, and I'm sure raring to go. Yeah,
look, in fairness to Killian, anytime he's come back from injury, he's always been in decent shape. I suppose the one fear I'd have is, he played a club game for Ballintubber, but at the same time he hasn't kind of played any kind of competitive game at this level probably since I think the Roscommon game he came on for a few minutes in. So it'll just be that level of sharpness. Kind of, if you start him, I don't think he's got a full game in him, but he's competed at that level. If you bring him on, you're bringing him on in the heat of a battle in the Galway-Mayo game, knockout championship. Will he be able to get up to the pace of that game as quickly as he needs to? So look, I think Killian's track record speaks for itself, but at the same time there is just going to be that bit of question marks, but there is a few cobwebs there whether he can get up to the pace of the game quick enough. I think fitness wise he'll be fine for 20 minutes, but it's just a matter of whether he'll be able to get up to the sharpness required. So I suppose, but going back to Gary's point there, I think the big one for me is Sean Kelly. If he starts, Galway are probably favourites. If he doesn't, it's a big advantage for Mayo. I think, as you mentioned there, look, he's probably looking at, if Galway progress, he's probably looking at player of the year territory in fairness to Williamstone.
Yeah, he's incredible in full flight when he's going forward as well, apart from everything else. You mentioned on paper, Gary, that Galway full forward line is incredible. Talk to us about Shane Walsh, will you? Because obviously the All-Ireland final last year was such a ridiculous benchmark that in some ways you're destined to be hammered if you don't meet that mark every time you go out on the pitch afterwards, but hard to turn that on every day, and he hasn't turned it on in a Galway shirt since.
Yeah, I'm glad you used the word ridiculous for what he didn't go apart last year, because it was absolutely ridiculous. I'm not so sure there's a lot of footballers out there that have had a dream to do that, don't mind actually going to do it. So he did something ridiculous. There's a couple of things with Shane, and one of them is the club campaign he went through. And for Shane, it was probably the longest season he's done. He's 29 now, going 30 soon. I don't think he's ever done a full season like that. He had a break, obviously. He went away to Australia and whatever, but how much of an effect that had on him, I don't know. He hasn't shot the lights out at all, and to quite honest with you, he was very disappointed last weekend in Carrick. Things that he does in his sleep he was very off, and even the striking of the ball, there was no consistency to it. The penalty, the 2 or 3, he one off the left, one off the right. They weren't consistent in anything he was doing, and I hope this weekend he's capable of just switching that off and turning on the magic again at the weekend. Yeah. And I know Mayo will be very aware of that. How much of a sting will be in him, it will be interesting to see. I've no doubt that he's been talked a lot this weekend. They're going to explain to him that although just be free, just go and play. And if they can get that out of him for 40 minutes, I think Galway will be fine. He is that important, and I think when Shane plays, it takes 2 to mark him. It maybe take 3. You might even have a system around him trying to slow him up and stop him up. He's that dangerous. And if that happens, then you've got Peter Cook, you've got Tierney, you've got Ian, you've got Damien, you've got Paul Conroy. Mayo will be aware of all this, and I think Shane is that pivotal to it. He's as important as Sean Kelly when he's in full flight, but we haven't seen that, as you mentioned. So as a Galway man, I hope to God Shane turns up for 40 minutes the weekend at Clare Stadium and does horrific damage if he can at all.
It's not even the terrible twins, it's the terrible trio, turns out, when they're all on song. Talk to us, Keith, a little bit. I'm reading Lee Keegan's comments during the week talking about Mayo's inability to see out games, to play boring football, he was calling it, to kill the game, to not be too cute. There's no shot clock, was how he had worded it. What does that all come down to?
We actually had this conversation yesterday with Lee, and again, you can't really kind of put your finger on exactly what it was. I think we were kind of saying, you go back over the last probably 10 years with Mayo, probably since even James took over first, and it was just this kind of nearly all-out attacking type of football, that there was no really kind of defensive systems, there was no really kind of attacking setups or plays or whatever you want to call it. It was just get the ball and everyone goes, and you play at this high-tempo game, and in a way I think that's nearly kind of kept it through. It's nearly ingrained in lads at this stage now that it's, as Lee said, we're not holding on to the ball for 2-3 minutes, just winding down, just kind of making things boring for the opposition and all that. And you look at the way Roscommon have adapted this year and the way they're playing, and sometimes you just need to do that, especially if you're 3-4 points up with 5 or 6 minutes to go. You just need to kill the game. Probably the best teams out there are good at doing that. They get the balance right, whereas we're just probably not at that level just yet. And whether that comes down to coach, and whether that comes down to kind of players just not kind of thinking it through, a bit naivety, I don't know what you want to call it, but sometimes you just have to be able to kind of, as Lee said, just win ugly at times and just kind of kill the game. And there's we're Mayo 6 points up, was it 10 minutes ago against Cork, and that's the type of he's on about. That's where you should be, just kind of killing the game and just winning the next 10 minutes by a point, or losing by a point and still win the game by 5, whereas they just let Cork get that bit of craziness in the game, get that bit of momentum, and then it's kind of hard to kill. So I'm not sure it's something that can be done, fixed within a week, but it's definitely something they kind of need to bring in the game if they're going to be kind of pushing on towards All-Ireland finals or winning All-Ireland finals.
Would you be worried that there wasn't enough communication in place for Aidan O'Shea? It seems to know that knock it over and we're through.
Possibly, yeah. I mean, I'm not sure who's going to be, if people are on the line or listening to all the games and see how things are going. I'm not sure whether they need to get that information to them quicker. I suppose at the time, with everything that's going on, it's just pure helter-skelter for the last few minutes. It's kind of hard to keep those kind of calm heads on the shoulders. But again, I wouldn't be overly concerned about that, to be quite honest with you. That's something that might only happen once every few years. I think it's the whole issue around conceding that 6-point lead is kind of where my concerns would be at, really.
Gary, Keith made the point there, he used the phrase making it boring. How important is it for both these teams to make the fixture boring in some ways? Because you could look at it on paper, Mayo, Galway, two rivals that, let's be honest, hate each other, knockout championship football. If you think about the occasion too much, I guess it's for Bora Joyce and Kevin McStay, really, isn't it? Whoever manages the occasion more and makes it boring in players' heads, because you don't want to hype it up too much.
Yeah, I agree, and I think last weekend was another example of one of Mayo's biggest Achilles heel problems they have, is that Kevin Walsh was in the Cork dressing room, and he put this template together that was a complete and utter antidote to the chaos that Keith was talking about there. I think it was maybe 2015 or 16, we went to McHale Park, and we set up in such a way that we closed down the avenues of running, and we made them keep the ball. They didn't want to do it, they kicked it back to us, and then when we got the ball back, we kept it off them, and they didn't like it. And Cork did it for periods, not as well as they should have last weekend, but they did cause havoc for Mayo, and I think Louth did it for a little while as well. And Galway's system at the minute with a double sweeper and breaking out is exactly what Mayo don't want, and I think that's going to be a big problem for Mayo at the weekend. I'm not so sure where they're going to get 13, 14, 15 points if Galway do set up properly. I do think as well in that missing Kieran Malloy, missing Liam Silk, if Sean Kelly doesn't play, then I'm not so sure how comfortable Galway will be in that system. But if they can get it together and slow that game down and make it boring, as you're talking about there, I think Mayo could have a serious problem in their hands.
One man who could get those points, Keith, I guess, is Tommy Conroy. 1-1 the last day. I know he came off the bench the last couple of times for James Carr. Is the argument there for him to start from the start, or is there, I guess, an argument in Kevin McStay's head that you need to finish with a stronger 15 in some ways?
Yeah, that's been Kevin's kind of mantra all year, is kind of finishing with nearly a stronger 15 than he has. I think the argument would probably be there to keep the full forward line the same with Aidan, James and Ryan. I mean, if Sean Kelly isn't fit, I think it throws up a question mark of who go up on Aidan, then who they match up with James. I think of a natural matchup like Jack Lynn to go on him. So I think if you start with Aidan and James, if Sean Kelly isn't fit, it just throws up a few more question marks over the matchups in the Galway defence. I think you go back to Gary's point there, though. I mean, you know, we talk about Mayo struggling sometimes with a packed defence and all this, but like the reality was they were 6 points up with 10 minutes to go, whatever it was, the last day against Cork. You know, so they were doing okay. It's just, I suppose, when Cork had to throw off the shackles and go at it a bit more, that bit of craziness came into it, and Mayo just kind of weren't able to kill the momentum. That's the kind of bit I'd be concerned about. I know if Galway pack the defence and do what they did previous years and get their two wing backs dropping into those channels, it will cause them problems and see where the scores come from. But at the same time, I think Mayo got a small bit better at it. They're just not kind of quite at that level just yet. But yeah, look, the argument is there to start Tommy Conroy again. A lot of it will come down, I think, to conditions as well. You know, like, it sounds very simplistic, but if Mayo had ended up getting the breeze in the first half, they'd put in Tommy in the second half. Then against the breeze, will they get enough ball from? It's just hard to know. There's so many ifs and buts to it, but I think they'll probably just go with the same full forward line again, keep James Carr in there and look to bring Tommy off the bench like they have been doing and kind of start with a stronger team.
Shane used the word hate there. Very strong word.
Accurate.
What was that, sorry?
Shane, he used the word hate.
Yeah, I think that was actually brought up for me during the week as well, and I think I mentioned it as well in a different interview, but it is a strong word. Hate probably isn't the right one, but I think there's a big dislike in there. It's just a case of sometimes you just have to do whatever it takes to win those games, you know. You can't kind of comprehend losing to your biggest rivals, and it's the same with me with Galway and Roscommon because we're so close to both here on the border. But again, even the point you made there about taking kind of the emotion out of it, I think it probably would be a very cagey start. I mean, both teams would probably set up very similar. They'll get bodies back and it will be kind of cagey maybe for 40-50 minutes, but if it's tight coming down that last 10 or 15 minutes, that's when the emotions will come into it, and that's when you want the boys with the calm head. So it'll be interesting to see. Yeah,
been an absolute belter. Gary, Keith, thanks a million.
Thank you very much.
Cheers, lads.
Looking forward to it now. I must say, you'll have your maroon and white jersey out.
I will. Yeah, no, Jesus, I have an uncle there.
The most patriotic Monaghan man you've ever met, who also supports Armagh, Monaghan.
I don't support Armagh.
Galway.
I've never supported Armagh. I was born in Armagh, but Galway. I'm 50% Galway.
You have another county in there somewhere as well.
Do you not? Monaghan and Galway, Dublin. Two counties. Definitely not Dublin. Jesus, not a chance would I support Dublin. No offence.
I mean, plenty of offence.
But that word hate, I have an uncle in Dunmore in Galway, North Galway, and hate is an understatement, Adrian, let me just say.
I know, the lads are going to be diplomatic.
Of course they're going to be diplomatic, but it goes two ways.
Alan Quinlan standing by. Off the Ball is going to be coming to the Cork Podcast Festival. It's Sunday the 27th of August, so get your tickets. It's in the Cork Opera House. What a venue to host OTB. Special guests are going to be announced very shortly. Don't miss out on a great night of conversation and crack in the heart of the Rebel County. For tickets, you can head along to the Cork to corkpodcastfestival.ie/off-the-ball. We'll put it up on our social channels. It'll be much easier to get than I've explained there. After the break, Alan Quinlan patiently waiting by. Before that, the last of our post-match footage reaction from the game at Tala last night. Kathleen in conversation with one of the stories of the night last night, Claire Reardon.
It was a set piece. Megan Connolly's deliveries are second to none, so they're absolutely brilliant. For me, I got my stance right, I got my distances right, and I had the run up similar to Megan, so I made sure that I was going to be on side. Came to my head and directed it towards goal, and thankfully went into the back of the net.
Set pieces are something that are obviously very important for Ireland in terms of scoring. It's generally been the way that we get quite a lot of our goals. Is the setups that we had tonight with Megan, I think, took all of the set pieces. Is that something that you're practicing a lot in training?
Yeah, so obviously, set pieces are in every game, so we have our tactics and our plans for that, and we came out tonight and we implemented them, and thankfully we were successful in a few set pieces, I think. So obviously it's a strength of ours, and we look to continue to capitalise on that and to have it in our back pocket. We were successful in doing that, and thankfully we were able to come away with the win.
You're listening
to OTB AM. The Coigig Pod on Off the Ball.
Just the old Olympic champions, no big deal. Been so focused on like the big opener against Australia that kind of forget the profile that Canada come into this tournament with. But most of the chat around them has been about industrial dispute that's been going on.
We could start stirring a little bit, right? Like trying to plant some seeds.
Our federation loves us now.
Keep up to date with all the WSL action every Tuesday and subscribe to the feed in the OTB Sports app now. OTB AM with Gillette Labs. Get the ultimate shave or your money back. Neon Night Edition available now.
It's 23 minutes past 9. The star-studded OTB AM Friday continues. Alan Quinlan, good morning to you.
Morning, lads. How are you?
You coloured. Have you been out just the Irish sun, or have you been out
Irish
enjoying
sun,
yourself? Get out of it, no chance. How's life?
Very good.
You didn't see your bud earlier on.
I did.
You used the word pragmatic in the ad break there, which was spot on about the defeat last weekend.
I suppose, yeah. I've spoke to him afterwards and on Sunday, and that's sport. It's disappointing. They're the hard yards for players.
Like it's within
and coaches.
Your grasp. You're watching the game and you're like, Jesus, they're going to do it. It's you've got your hand on it, and then suddenly it's.
And I think obviously winning the Champions Cup and winning it last year as well. You know, you're very small margins there, and there's going to be disappointments in sport, and so he's got a big trophy, and La Rochelle have. Yeah. They were very close, so I think being pragmatic about it is, it's been a brilliant season for them. Obviously it could have been topped off. You know, they've never won the top 14. Toulouse, I think, have won it 23 times now or something like that in their history.
The last I saw was Anton Dupont down at the beach using the bouclier, the actual trophy, to surf into the water.
As you should do.
I was like,
fair play.
This thing is obviously just expected that you just horse it around and do what you want.
Yeah, it gets thrown around a little bit, but they're an incredible club, though, aren't they? Toulouse, you know.
Incredible.
We hear a fair bit in sport, don't we? The teams know how to win, and you know,
they've come a long way.
It's more a belief thing, you know what I mean? And that's always the intrigue in sport. That even when your back is against the wall, you're getting, you know, probably physically out muscle a little bit. They haven't had many opportunities in the game, and you know, Intermac does what he did the other night. Incredible.
Does everything he does.
Yeah, but his performance in the game was quite poor. Yeah. He was really poor, and
that shouldn't be
very indecisive.
That shouldn't be forgotten. Like he pulled off a great move at the end there, but let's not forget about everything else that went on. But it matters if you're playing France in a World Cup game and he's at 10 and they've like.
Yeah, but
honestly, he fumbled the ball very late in the game. Very straightforward take, and then
history books won't remember that.
Halves. How many times have you seen a kick to the corner, right, in the clutch moments of a game where you're going, geez, maybe the out half could have taken another yard or two, but they're not taking another yard or two because they know they can't test that line. That's headless stuff for a player that.
Johnny Sexton has missed him before. Bowden Barrett has missed him.
Can't think of too many at that moment. I think it's very important.
You've got to be spot on there. But look, just his overall game, and it's been, you know, his form has been up and down a little bit in the last year, and there's certain people in France will be saying Jaminet should start, probably deserves to start instead of him. But and when you play Toulouse or France, it's always about Dupont, Intermac. How do you stop them? More so Dupont, to be fair, but Intermac has to always to be watched. You can never switch off, so the quality is there. And look, I wouldn't be kind of looking for any sort of vulnerabilities in France and saying, well, Intermac hasn't had a brilliant season.
As long as he does it again during the World Cup when they're playing us, that'd be very important. Then we'd be happy. Come here, the draw is wild, like hard to fathom on every
draw. Yeah, it's the structure has changed for the Champions Cup next year again. They're gone back to, you know, the pools last year, and the last couple of seasons were 12 teams, and it was quite confusing. There's a little bit less confusion there. A bit of change again, and obviously the draw was made on Wednesday, so it's four groups of 6, which is you're making up your 24, and 4 of those teams out of that 6 will qualify for the round 16. I have a problem with that a little bit, in the sense that
jeopardy.
Well, look, if there's 6 teams in your group and you know 4 of you are going to get out of it,
Have you to win more than one game in that context?
Well, if you look at last year's knockout stages, both Montpellier and Ulster got through to the round 16, winning one game out of 4 matches, which for me, only 2 teams did that. The year before, there was more teams did it. There was, I think it could have been 3 that got through, winning one game. But look, I think what we did see last year in the Champions Cup was incredible. The knockout stages were unbelievable. A lot of the pool games were very good, but there was certain games. Everybody remembers Gloucester coming to Dublin. It was the towel was kind of thrown in the way, and I hate that for any team doing that.
It was over after about 20
back
minutes.
when I played, and when the competition was very intense and it was 6 pools of 4. You had, at times, it was, some of the French teams just couldn't do it on both fronts, and you'd have an odd game here and there where they would put out a second string team after round 3, maybe, when they've lost the first 2. They're kind of really throwing the towel in. I think there's just opportunities here for teams to go second string a bit. Look, player welfare and all that, it's hard to kind of do it, but if you're taking 20 players out of a squad and putting in a new 20 and sending them to play a game, it just frustrates me a little bit. But I think it's also a little bit confusing that you have a team in your group that you don't play against from the same league. So, for example, for Munster, it's Glasgow who are in their group and they don't play Glasgow. They play the other 4 teams.
Leinster and Stormers.
Yeah, they don't play the Stormers because they're in the same league. I get the logic of it and I understand it. It took me a little bit of time to understand that. But the 4 highest ranked clubs in each pool will qualify for the knockout. So
it's a bit daft. The under 20s, it's sort of come out of nowhere, but the World Championship start tomorrow. South Africa. They're playing against England. We've watched this team during the Six Nations and they're off the charts good. There's a lot of really recognisable names in the team as well, including Evan O'Connell, nephew of the great one, who didn't start. I certainly didn't start most of the games, if I remember rightly, during the...
Yeah, he was on the bench for a fair bit of that, coming off the bench for a lot of the games in the Six Nations.
Has the group...
We haven't seen an under-20s championship for a couple of years because of COVID.
Yeah.
It's a great opportunity for this team to see if they can kind of... have they physically got better, stronger? Have they improved technically? Richie Murphy's done a great job, back-to-back Grand Slams.
Have they shot at winning it?
You just don't know. It's hard to analyse, what Australia will bring, what New Zealand will bring, what Argentina will possibly could bring. England, have an ability. They have a very big physical side. You just don't know. South Africa themselves, so that's the real measure. Ireland play England first up, which is a very tough game tomorrow, and then they play Australia on Thursday, and then Fiji a couple of days later. So it's a little bit of the unknown. Obviously, all Ireland can control is themselves here, in a sense that they have a very good platform to build on. And I think listening to a lot of the players the last couple of days and seeing some of the press stuff, they're all talking about improvement and building on what they did in the Six Nations. But it's a very, very dangerous game for anybody thinking that the 20s will just turn up tomorrow and it'll be a foregone conclusion that they'll beat England. I think what they did very well against England in the game in Cork to win the Grand Slam was defensively they stopped a big powerful side from getting over the gain line. There's a couple of times England kind of got some brilliant tries in that game, but one thing about this side is they're tenacious, they're aggressive, and they're confident in what they do. And when you've someone like Sam Prendergast at 10 who's pretty gifted, I think the power that they have up front is very impressive. I think they have a very structured, their set piece is very good, but they play a lot as well. So they have a great variety to their game, and I saw that. I did a good few of the 20s games, and obviously watched them all during the Six Nations. The first game, when I think back over in Wales, they kind of struggled a little bit at times, and it looked like Wales were going to, cut them apart at times. And each time they went up the field, they were ruthless in getting a maul try or, getting their forwards dominance. And then they kicked on the second half and they won that game convincingly. So there's some really good players in this side who I think are going to go on and play with their provinces and have a real impact in professional rugby. When
you look at the team, Quinny, like aside from maybe Rowan Quinn, who played a couple of games in the URC, I think, for Munster, and Prendergast obviously got a couple of lineouts for Leinster. There's not many players there with senior experience, but as Richie Murphy made the point, they have a lot of experience of playing together, and they have
Conor Tiernan has been involved with Leinster as well, and I think Andrew Osborne, Jamie Osborne's brother, he's a very good player as well. There might be one or two more. Henry McAleen might have been as well with Leinster. I think there's 8 of that group are gone into the Leinster Academy this year. They're very powerful players. Brian Gleeson is kind of this big physical specimen, number 8, played really well for big impact throughout the championship in the Grand Slam. He picked up a knock, probably hampered his training coming into this week, so he's on the bench. Evan O'Connell goes into the second row, and Dermot Mangan goes into the back row. He's a very versatile, powerful player as well. And I like what got me during the Six Nations was that those 5, the 2 second rows and the back rows, how dynamic they were, how athletic they were, and how comfortable they were on the ball. I know, obviously, being a back row myself, I would always thought, if you get your back row making 10-15 carries each in a game, it gives you a lot of involvements, and these guys, I think, have a lot of involvements in the game. Gleeson on the bench, he's such a powerful, aggressive ball carrier, scored tries throughout the championship as well. So I think that's probably going to be the key in this championship for them. The front row, Gus McCarthy, the hooker, the captain, unbelievably dynamic and powerful as well. Great ball carrier.
We're very well stacked.
There's a lot of good players, but you don't. The one area I'd probably be, you just don't know. As I said, it's a little bit of the unknown what New Zealand, South Africa, Australia
they
bring.
look very comfortable under pressure.
I think looking at this team, they're in a really good position to have a really good championship. Hopefully it starts well against England tomorrow.
You wanted to touch on the Wales pre-season training camp, the rigorousness of it, the madness of it, the wildness of it, and your own experiences of being in that environment and been pushed to the pin of your collar, the pre-season stuff.
It's always the toughest time. Most rugby players, I don't know about other sports, but certainly the rugby pre-season was always really difficult. It was that kind
because you'd let yourself loose, or because it was
no. Well, you've 3 or 4 weeks off on your holidays, and then you're trying to enjoy your holidays, and that last weekend of we're back on Monday. The last weekend, I think it's kind of like going back to school. That feeling of, oh Jesus, we've got to face this on Monday, and you possibly have fitness testing to start on Monday morning, and it's a kind of dreaded weekend, that bit of anxiety that your reality, the holidays are over, but it's tough. And I watched obviously the Wales release footage of them going to an army camp somewhere in Wales, or it could have been in the UK, somewhere at the last week, where they were diving in and out of lakes and water and carrying logs up hills and all that kind of stuff, that army stuff, pulling themselves up ropes. And I saw Warren Gatlin in the videos obviously talking about that, and it kind of brought back memories of going to Poland in 2000. It was
cryotherapy.
Yeah, it was for cryotherapy. It was in Spala is where we were. And it's a couple of hours outside of Warsaw, out in the countryside in the middle of the woods. I think it was a mental and physical challenge. We went for 3 weeks the first time we went there, and we did an incredibly hard week where you're doing about 5-6 sessions a day. So your normal day would be up in the morning, you're monitored, weighed, urine sample, body fat test, in for breakfast, go and do maybe a weight session, then a cardio session, and then maybe a speed session. You've kind of 3 sessions before lunch. They're short enough. Then you do the cryotherapy, and you've probably 20-30 minutes on a bike. It's fairly intense anyway. You have lunch, and then you're out for the afternoon where you're doing a weights hit again, probably a fitness hit, and maybe a run in the woods to finish your day, and then cryotherapy again. So very intense, shock the system. So your day is starting at 7 in the morning, you're kind of finishing, maybe sitting down for your dinner at 6:30, 7:15, absolutely shattered. Did that for the week. We broke for the first weekend and went to Krakow on the Saturday morning or Saturday afternoon. Had a meal there. Krakow is a lovely city, and had a walk around there and a few drinks. Back in the bus Sunday morning, back to Spala again. You're driving in the dreaded long drive in the gate, and then we had another incredibly intense week. Players were starting to mentally wane a little bit because it was hard going. You're doing a lot of sessions, and it's kind of that dreaded run in the evening, then at 6 or 6:15 up the woods, up around the hills for half an hour, and then like the second weekend we went to Auschwitz. We weren't mentally damaged enough, and this is no disrespect to anyone who's ever been affected by that, or anyone
team environment going to someplace like I've been there.
Look, it was really intriguing to go to Auschwitz and see, and like it was phenomenal to understand the history of the whole place and be there and saw the way people were treated there. It was horrific, but I think we stayed a night there and we had a few drinks again. Very limited. Nobody wanted to have drinks, and Getty was always a big believer of, if you have a hard week, have a few beers. But
everyone was burnt out.
We went back on the Sunday, and that was the one. Going back in that Sunday was like, God, we're facing this for a third week here. The idea of the breaks of Krakow and Auschwitz and go somewhere different was just get away on a Saturday night or see something different. The third week, again, it was supposed to be a full-on week for the whole week, and we did crazy stuff there, and it kind of, by Wednesday, I think the sessions went to maybe 1 or 2 sessions in the day, and by Friday it was a half day, and Saturday was off, and then we stayed. But it brought back memories of that, of kind of, that type of mental, physical torture of 3 weeks.
And still doing the same sessions at the minute.
It's the hardest time of the year for man, and in fairness, all the thing, like Ireland could end up doing some stuff like that, and it pushes you to the limit, and that's where you're going to get the money in the bank, really, for the season ahead.
All right, you're going to be back on Monday. We'll be looking back in that under-20 game, I'm sure, and plenty more besides. Thanks a million for coming in. Thanks a lot. Shane, fair play to you.
Cheers,
enjoy the games over the weekend.
Indeed.
Enjoy them.
Oh, I will.
You going?
Result dependent. I'm not going to I'm going to a friend's engagement party on Saturday.
Oh, wow.
I'm going to watch it at home.
Wow. I wish we got to this a little bit earlier. The most patriotic Monaghan man in the country, by the way.
The Miners playing Kerry as well.
He ain't even going to the game. Well, there you have it. 20-10. You've been watching OTB AM. Thanks for your company over the last few hours. Really enjoyable show this morning, as always. Thanks to the production team. Monday's show, Adrian Shane are going to be live at the Gillette Labs Performance Rankings. Quinny will be back. Sarah O'Donovan will talk hurling. Anthony Moyles in the football, and plenty more as well. Have a fab Friday.
Friday night racing
on Off the Ball.
And they're off. Brought to you by Go Racing. Plan your day at the races at goracing.ie.
All right, you're very welcome along to Friday night racing. We're live.